Chapter 71. 20 years in retrospect. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Emperor Lu Shi was momentarily stunned in place. He had anticipated various answers, the more normal ones, to plead on behalf of the seventh princess, or to widen the selection scope, attempting to prevent the seventh princess from becoming a divine weapon bearer. The more ruthless response would be approval of Emperor Lu Shi's actions. As a member of the royal lineage, sacrificing for the nation was nothing out of the ordinary. But Lu Shi had never expected Lin Yuan's answer to be this. No need to cultivate a divine weapon bearer. Give me time, and I will surpass the divine weapon bearers. It must be known that behind every divine weapon bearer stands a divine weapon. And within the Central Plains 36 kingdoms, divine weapons are heaven itself. To surpass a divine weapon bearer is akin to surpassing a divine weapon itself. Such against heaven's expressions, once spread, would likely make the Greater Yan dynasty the focus of the entire Central Plains 36 kingdoms. At that time, the court would be shaken, and Lin Yuan's position as the crown prince could not even be guaranteed. Of course, Emperor Lu Shi, as Lin Yuan's father, naturally would not let these words escape. Yuan truly has grand aspirations, Emperor Lu Shi remarked with admiration. If Lin Yuan were already in his 30s or 40s, having witnessed the might of a divine weapon, such declarations would surely make one seem ignorant of the immensity of heaven and earth. The existence of a divine weapon is something those in high positions are all too aware of. But Lin Yuan was merely 6 years old. A 6-year-old child's impractical aspirations. What of it? When Emperor Lu Shi was 6 years old, he too wished to bring down the sun from the sky. However, Yuan, such words should just be said to your father and no one else. Don't ever mention it to others, not even to your closest servants. After his praise, Emperor Lu Shi warned him. As the crown prince, one must be careful with words and deeds, and with the affection Emperor Lu Shi had for Lin Yuan, no matter what Lin Yuan did, there was always room for redemption, the only exception being matters related to divine weapons. I understand. Lin Yuan glanced at Emperor Lu Shi. He clearly knew that the latter hadn't taken his words seriously at all. This was something Lin Yuan had anticipated. He wasn't surprised at all. Following that, Emperor Lu Shi made small talk with Lin Yuan for a few more sentences. Then he stood up and left. Watching the receding figure of Emperor Lu Shi, Lin Yuan's eyes remained calm. With the methods at his current disposal, if he revealed strength surpassing that of a martial saint, it was highly likely that he would earn Emperor Lu Shi's trust. But such an act came with great risk. Mainly because Lu Shi was the emperor of the Greater Yan dynasty, the spokesperson for that nation protecting divine weapon. Was there some kind of methodology infused in him, capable of sensing something? The moment Lin Yuan revealed his strength, he might alarm that divine weapon, leading to irreversible consequences. It must be known that divine weapons fed on the human race. The stronger the human strength and the more vigorous the vitality, the more delicious they were to divine weapons. Those with innate strong souls were even considered feasts by divine weapons, being bound by the title of divine weapon bearer and savored slowly. And in terms of vigorous vitality and a strong soul, who in the Central Plains 36 kingdoms could compare with Lin Yuan? It could be predicted that once Lin Yuan's aura leaked, it would certainly drive the Greater Yan dynasty's divine weapon mad. And it might not just be the divine weapon of Greater Yan, but the nation protecting divine weapons of the other 35 kingdoms, which would awaken in unison to partake in Lin Yuan, this feast together. Therefore, ever since learning of the divine weapons, Lin Yuan had been minimizing the frequency of his interventions as much as possible. Even if he needed to take action, he had to do so far away from the divine weapon ancestral grounds and people like Emperor Lu Shi who had been close to divine weapons. It wasn't that Lu Shi would betray his own son, but some matters were simply beyond his control. Perhaps he was unaware of what had transpired within him. Having fully integrated this world's cultivation system into my martial Tao, my current realm surpasses that of a martial saint. Let's call this realm martial god then. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged, silently contemplating. The realm of martial god has already broken free from the shackles of the flesh, and has achieved incredible feats in the aspect of divinity. The Tai Chi Yin and Yang paths transform into grinding wheels, constantly refining one's own divinity. If placed in the main world, the realm of martial god would roughly equate to the third-rank second to third segments. Lin Yuan's cultivation system uses the physical body as the foundation, the way of Taiji as the framework, and the main world's thousands of evolution paths as the flesh. Now, by further integrating the perfect body refining method of this world, it's like drawing upon all the advantages of the cultivation systems across various worlds. However, advancing further from here will not be so easy. Lin Yuan opened his eyes and thought to himself. Having arrived in this world for merely 6 years, Lin Yuan had already stepped into the realm of martial god. Mainly relying on the accumulation from before his travels, if not for the time wasted integrating the perfect body cultivation method of this world, Lin Yuan could have entered the martial god realm 1 or 2 years earlier. But these advantages only go so far. The road ahead would require Lin Yuan to continue exploring on his own. Even with against heaven's understanding, future cultivation efficiency could not possibly exceed that of the first 6 years upon his arrival. I have 160 years to stay during this travel, and only 6 years have passed. Take it slow. Lin Yuan closed his eyes and continued his cultivation. The divine weapon is visible. Lin Yuan remains hidden. As long as Lin Yuan does not rashly expose himself, the divine weapon will be unlikely to discover his strength. And Lin Yuan, with his against heaven's understanding, grows stronger every moment. No matter how great the shackles and bottlenecks, it's only a matter of spending more time. As the Greater Yan dynasty cultivated new weapon masters, the situation amongst the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms stabilized once again. In dealings with other nations, the Greater Yan dynasty regained its confidence. With external threats gone, only internal governance remained. Emperor Lu Shi was not a muddled emperor. Furthermore, with Lin Yuan's occasional reminders, the national strength of the Greater Yan dynasty continued to grow. Especially since Lin Yuan took the initiative to increase trade with other nations, opening up many trade routes. The people of the Greater Yan began to prosper. As a result, Lin Yuan also received the support of many citizens. At least Lin Yuan's actions allowed the people to see that the Greater Yan dynasty could flourish for at least another generation. Throughout history, there have been many emperors who were the tiger father and the dog son, leading to great rises and falls in dynasties. And Lin Yuan was clearly quite capable and politically astute. He was fully capable of taking over from the old emperor. The ministers of the court also held Lin Yuan in high regard. After all, the Grand Tutor had admitted in front of Emperor Lu Shi that he was inferior to Lin Yuan. What could he do afterward to salvage his own face? The only option was to praise Lin Yuan enthusiastically. It wasn't that he was incompetent. It was that Lin Yuan was too monstrous. If you're so capable, you try taking over. At first, there were actually a few ministers who objected. What can a child of a few years do to reach the sky? Grand Tutor, you've really grown old. It's time for you to go home and rest. But these few ministers were left speechless in front of Lin Yuan, mocked to the point where they couldn't utter a word. After this incident, and with Lin Yuan displaying some of his skills in front of other court officials and exercising both grace and might on several occasions, his prestige naturally rose. Emperor Lu Shi observed Lin Yuan in silence, the color of approval on his face becoming harder to conceal. When it came to the art of controlling people and maintaining balance, his son seemed to have an innate gift. The work he put into pacifying the ministers back in his day had not been easy. This certainly related to the manner in which Emperor Lu Shi had come to power, but consider how young Lin Yuan still is. Time passed. And so, 20 years went by. Chapter 72. My son should be a sage monarch 1,000 miles from the capital of the Greater Yan dynasty. In an inconspicuous valley, a young man sat cross-legged. In front of him, a large amount of spiritual medicine was laid out. Each of these spiritual medicines was a rare treasure, any single one of which could make a blood-refining martial saint envious. But at this moment, they were piled up in front of him like common weeds. If an official from the Greater Yan dynasty were here, they would find. Compared to the spiritual medicines, the young man sitting cross-legged in front of them was even more unsettling. Because this young man was the effective ruler of the present-day Greater Yan dynasty. Not the emperor, but Crown Prince Lu Yuan, superior to the emperor. I have reached martial god full circle and can now break through to the next realm. In the valley, Lin Yuan's eyes were calm as he gazed at the many spiritual medicines in front of him. Over 20 years, Lin Yuan had completed the martial god phase, and with his against heaven's understanding, he had also deduced the specific path for the next stage. However, in Lin Yuan's predictions, breaking through the martial god phase might cause his aura to leak, thereby alerting the divine weapons. That was why he had come to this remote location before attempting the breakthrough. This valley was 1,000 miles away from the capital of the Greater Yan Kingdom, and more than 1,200 miles away from the divine weapon ancestral grounds of the Greater Yan dynasty. Such a distant location was sufficient to conceal the disturbances caused by Lin Yuan's breakthrough. Let's begin. Lin Yuan exhaled slowly. The many spiritual medicines in front of him turned to dust, their essence streaming into Lin Yuan's mouth. Exhale. Inhale. With each breath Lin Yuan took, his body underwent earth-shaking changes, his vital energies transformed, reaching ultimate condensation and sublimation. Bas! A terrifying aura uncontrollably spread in all directions. For a moment, every small animal in the valley felt an overwhelming sense of suffocation. As if the heavens were collapsing and an ancient godly being was descending. Fortunately, this suffocating feeling only lasted for a moment. Half an hour later, all auras completely converged. Is this the Heaven Man realm? Inside the valley, Lin Yuan stood up, keenly feeling the substantial increase in strength throughout his body. Above the martial god is the Heaven Man. The god in martial god refers to the spirit, an aspect of soul and spirit untouched by all cultivators in this world. While the Heaven Man is a realm beyond the martial god. Taiji Field. Lin Yuan's mind stirred. An invisible ripple spread out, easily encompassing an area of more than 10 miles around him. Before his breakthrough, Lin Yuan's Taiji Field could only cover a few miles. Now, it had expanded several times, covering nearly 20 miles. Moreover, the Taiji Field was not only larger in scope. The suppressing and binding force had also increased several times. Now, if Lin Yuan faced a third-rank evolver like Bing Yan, just by using the Taiji Field, he could suppress his opponent completely, leaving no chance for resistance or struggle. Besides the Taiji Field, Lin Yuan's physical soul and vital spirit had also undergone a transformation. This breakthrough has increased my strength. Lin Yuan sighed lightly, a look of satisfaction on his face. It's getting late. It's about time I returned. Lin Yuan stepped out of the valley. As he moved, the air subtly distorted, invisible to an ordinary person's view. With the power of the Taiji Field, a slight twist in the light rays could make Lin Yuan effectively invisible. Of course, such invisibility had little effect on true powerhouses. Powerhouse perception does not rely solely on sight. Eastern Palace. Lin Yuan's figure appeared silently. Shortly after, a eunuch walked in cautiously. Your Highness, here is what you requested. The eunuch held out a sealed letter respectfully. Lin Yuan took the letter, glanced at it, and it turned to dust. Over the past 20 years, besides further advancing his strength and entering the Heaven Man realm, Lin Yuan leveraged his vision beyond the era to open up trade routes among the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, and covertly established a massive intelligence network. Even Emperor Lu Shi was unaware of this, and within the entire imperial palace, only the eunuch, whose life and death hung on Lin Yuan's whims, knew something about it. The purpose of establishing an intelligence network was naturally to investigate the divine weapons. As the spokespeople for the nation protecting divine weapons, most descendants of the Greater Yan royal family were utterly loyal to the divine weapons, making it fruitless and burdensome to investigate divine weapons using the royal family's power. Only by establishing his own forces and nurturing his wings could he hope to learn more about the divine weapons. Actually, Lin Yuan had no animosity towards the divine weapons since there was no grievance between them. However, divine weapons constantly thought about devouring him. In the eyes of the divine weapons, all people were food. And Lin Yuan was considered a delicacy among meals, setting their positions irreconcilably against each other. Over 20 years. Lin Yuan's understanding of divine weapons had far surpassed that of his first 6 years after his arrival. The first point was the origin of the divine weapons. Most of this was myth and legend, without solid evidence to prove it. The specific rumors were, thousands of years ago in the ancient times, there were godly beings who walked the earth and ultimately forged divine weapons. Moreover, the divine weapons forged at that time were not limited to just 36, but later some unknown calamity happened. As a result, only 36 divine weapons remained, each safeguarding one of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, forming the current situation. Thousands of years ago? Ancient godly being? Lin Yuan stroked his chin, deep in thought. To Lin Yuan, these so-called ancient godly beings were nothing more than powerful evolvers. However, Why this ancient godly being would create these sentient divine weapons was beyond anyone's understanding. And since that time, the ancient godly being who created the divine weapons disappeared without a trace, never to be seen again. This was something that greatly puzzled Lin Yuan. Such a powerful being, even if at the end of his lifespan, would at least leave behind some specific legends. If one could capture a divine weapon and perform a soul search. A thought struck Lin Yuan's mind. Since the divine weapons had developed spiritual wisdom, they possessed consciousness and a soul. And soul search was a technique that used one's powerful mental force to forcibly scan the memories of another. But this idea was quickly dismissed by Lin Yuan. Based on his current understanding of the divine weapons combined with the historical instances when the divine weapons had revived, Lin Yuan deduced that each of the divine weapons guarding the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms had nearly 4th-rank power. Such strength was beyond Lin Yuan's current capability to confront. Perhaps at the Heavenman realm stage, achieving perfection, he might reach close to 4th rank. Even so, he would be at the same level as the divine weapons. To capture a divine weapon would certainly cause a massive upheaval and attract the attention of other divine weapons. At that time, Lin Yuan could be facing a situation where 36 sword divine weapons were against him alone. How is the investigation into the Defying Divine Society going? Lin Yuan casually asked. The Defying Divine Society was an extremely secretive underground organization. It was active throughout the entire Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. If it were not for the intelligence network established by Lin Yuan, which once caught traces of the Defying Divine Society, it would have been difficult to uncover information about this organization. The aim of the Defying Divine Society was to overthrow the rule of the divine weapons. For thousands of years, the divine weapons had reigned supreme, using all living beings as their sustenance. It was bound to provoke resistance from certain people. However, the power of the divine weapons was unmatched. These people could only hide in the shadows, establishing the Defying Divine Society and waiting for an opportunity. And Lin Yuan intended to use the Defying Divine Society to gain specific information about the divine weapons. As an organization that had opposed the divine weapons for thousands of years, it surely held many secrets about them. And these were precisely what Lin Yuan needed. To know both your enemies and yourself is the only way to win. The more Lin Yuan understood about the divine weapons, the more confident he could be. Your Highness, we have pinpointed the general area of the Defying Divine Society's main headquarters in the Greater Yan Dynasty. Within half a month, we should be able to ascertain its exact location, the eunuch answered respectfully. The following day, early in the morning, the Imperial Guard arrived outside the Eastern Palace. Your Highness, the Emperor has summoned you. The head of the Imperial Guard said respectfully. Father Emperor is okay, isn't he? Lin Yuan immediately got up upon hearing this. Emperor Lu Shi had his children late in life. When Lin Yuan was born, Lu Shi was already almost 50 years old. 26 years had passed, and Lu Shi was now over 70 years old. In his youth, Lu Shi had paid a heavy price in the struggle for the throne, acquiring many hidden injuries in the process. Now that he was old, these injuries naturally began to manifest more severely. This condition was something Lin Yuan had noticed over 10 years ago. He had even specifically studied medical texts and formulated several treatment plans for Lu Shi. However, injuries to the Bodhi's origin source required extensive time to heal, compounded by old age, and in recent years Lu Shi had increasingly withdrawn from handling state affairs. There shouldn't be any issues, Lin Yuan thought to himself. With the treatment plans he had devised for Lu Shi, while they might not extend his life indefinitely, they should at least slowly mitigate the internal injuries. As long as no major complications arose, living to 100 would not be a problem. Of course, the symptoms common to the elderly, like lack of energy, were inevitable. It's not that Lin Yuan couldn't solve these issues. But because of the existence of the divine weapons, Lin Yuan couldn't utilize his true power. Inside Chengtian Hall, Lin Yuan saw Emperor Lu Shi. Lu Shi was in fairly good spirits, sipping on his medicinal broth. Yuaner. Seeing Lin Yuan come in, Lu Shi quickly waved him over. Father Emperor. Lin Yuan walked over. My health and spirit are in decline, and I am no longer capable of handling the multitude of state affairs. Lu Shi's gaze shifted to the ministers beside him. These ministers were all high officials of the court, and they had arrived before Lin Yuan. Therefore, I wish to abdicate and become the retired emperor, and leave Greater Yan in Yuan's hands. What do my loyal subjects think? Lu Shi looked at the ministers. The ministers exchanged glances. They had anticipated this day for a while and weren't surprised at all. Father Emperor. Lin Yuan looked at Emperor Lu Shi. My son should be the sage monarch. Emperor Lu Shi didn't say much more but patted Lin Yuan's shoulder, his expression showing a trace of relief. In the year 3625 of the Greater Yan calendar, the new Emperor Lu Yuan ascended to the throne. Chapter 73. Only a divine weapon can counter a divine weapon. The new emperor ascended the throne. All under heaven celebrated. All 35 states of the Central Plains sent envoys to offer congratulations. Lin Yuan responded to each one without showing the slightest unfamiliarity. Although he had just ascended, for the past 10 years, Lin Yuan had been the crown prince serving as regent. The military and political power of the state were in his hands. Compared to a true emperor, he lacked nothing but the title. Half a month later, inside Chengtian Hall, Lin Yuan, dressed in a dragon robe, fell into deep thought. After officially taking the throne, the true secrets of the Greater Yan dynasty unfolded before him, mainly concerning the divine weapons. The nation-protecting divine weapon of the Greater Yan dynasty. Its true name was the Sun and Moon Spear. In more than 3,600 years of Greater Yan's history, the divine weapon Sun and Moon Spear had revived 3 times. Each time because of the disturbance caused by the evil soldier, leading to the suffering of the people, and then the warriors would act, mobilizing the divine weapon to suppress everything. Evil soldier? Lin Yuan stroked his chin. To force a divine weapon into action, the so-called evil soldier must possess strength far surpassing that of a martial saint. Defying divine society. Lin Yuan pondered internally. According to the information possessed by the Greater Yan dynasty, the defying divine society always had an ambiguous connection with the evil soldier. Every time the evil soldier caused chaos, the shadow of the defying divine society was behind it. Therefore, the Greater Yan dynasty, more accurately, the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. Whenever they encountered someone from the defying divine society, it was always kill without mercy. There was no need even for capture. This was also the will of each nation protecting divine weapon, which no one dared to defy. Seems like this defying divine society holds great secrets. Lin Yuan's expression hinted at a deep thought. His forces were now close to pinpointing the location of the headquarters of the defying divine society within the Greater Yan dynasty. Whatever secrets the defying divine society held would soon be unveiled before Lin Yuan. Atop the royal court, Lin Yuan sat on the dragon throne. The Minister of Right stepped out from the ranks and respectfully said, Your Majesty, having succeeded to the great rule, should promptly visit the divine weapon ancestral grounds to offer sacrifices to the divine weapon. The 36 kingdoms of the Central Plains shared many traditions. One of these was the sacrificing to the divine weapon. Every newly ascended emperor needed to quickly visit their respective divine weapon ancestral grounds to offer sacrifices to the divine weapon. This tradition was quite normal. After all, the nation protecting divine weapons, for each kingdom, represented an existence as supreme as the heavens themselves. Sacrificing to the divine weapon was essentially no different from sacrificing to the heavens. Sacrificing to the divine weapon? Lin Yuan looked towards the Minister of Rights. The divine weapon ancestral grounds was not located in the capital, but hundreds of miles away from it. Lin Yuan had always been wary of the divine weapon ancestral grounds, even though he was sure that most of the time, the divine weapon Sun and Moon Spear was in a dormant state. He was reluctant to get close to the divine weapon ancestral grounds. Not long ago, Lin Yuan had advanced to the Heavenman realm and, to ensure nothing went wrong, purposely left the capital to break through in a location far from the divine weapon ancestral grounds. I have been recently unwell. Let's postpone the sacrifice to another day. Lin Yuan found a casual excuse to brush it off. Sacrificing to the divine weapon was a tradition established by the ancestors, and even the emperor could not change it. But being unable to change it didn't mean it couldn't be delayed. Lin Yuan was not refusing to go, just that due to his ailment, he planned to go after some time had passed. Who could say anything about that? Yes. The Minister of Rights helplessly retreated. Unwell? Nonsense. Others might use this excuse, but the reigning emperor using it. The Minister of Rights was an old official who had served through 2 dynasties. He naturally knew that Lin Yuan was determined by imperial physicians at birth to possess the strongest constitution and physical strength ever seen in the history of the Greater Yan dynasty. Even if there was some exaggeration involved, it definitely had some basis. The retired emperor had always disfavored flattering subordinates, so the imperial physician's conclusion back then must have been based on some factual elements. Under these conditions, when Lin Yuan said he was unwell, the Minister of Rites definitely didn't believe it. But not believing it did no good. Continue to admonish? If it were the normal ascendance of a new emperor, he, the Minister of Rites, would dare to do so. After all, a new emperor in the early periods of his reign definitely had to listen to the advice of his ministers to stabilize the court. But Lin Yuan, over so many years, the Minister of Rites had some understanding of this prince who had been crown prince for over 20 years before smoothly ascending to the throne. If he truly insisted on continuing his admonishment, playing that old tune silly, the emperor might just indulge him. Not only that, the emperor would considerately include his family and even his 9 clans to join him below. Forget it. Let's just delay it. The Minister of Rites opened his mind. He was merely following protocol, and just needed to mention it periodically. He didn't believe the emperor could delay it for 20 or 50 years. Wuyan City. This was a city in the southern part of the Greater Yan dynasty. Backed by the vast mountains of Dashan, it was quite prosperous. In the dense forest more than 10 miles from Wuyan City, unbeknownst to anyone, over 20 figures had appeared. These 20-some figures, although standing there, vaguely exuded surging vital energy, all evidently at the level of blood-refining martial saints. Blood-refining martial saint was the limit ordinary people could reach. Further up were the various weapon-bearers. And the weapon-bearers, considered messengers of the divine weapons, were no longer human. The over 20 blood-refining martial saints were already comparable to the collective might of the 36 states of the Central Plains, rivaling the number of martial saints in the slightly weaker dynasties. Apart from the more than 20 martial saints, many other powerful figures were converging from a distance. That dense forest should be the headquarters of the Defying Divine Society. The master mentioned, capture all remnants of the Defying Divine Society. Do not kill them, do you understand? The leading martial saint's lips did not move, but his words carried along the fluctuations of vital energy and traveled through the air into each martial saint's ears. Understood. Got it. Capture only, that's right. Many martial saints nodded, showing no objections. The battle ended smoothly. Under the onslaught of more than 20 blood-refining martial saints, hundreds to thousands of organ refinement innate martial masters and marrow refinement grandmasters, the headquarters of the Defying Divine Society was swiftly flattened. Xikong Luan, the leader, hadn't even had time to escape through the secret tunnels before he was blocked by 3 blood-refining martial saints. Then everything before his eyes went dark and he knew no more. By the time Xikong Luan regained consciousness, he shockingly found himself inside a luxurious carriage. All the meridians in his body were sealed, incapable of mobilizing even a trace of vital energy. To put it simply, he, Xikong Luan, was now a cripple. Even an ordinary person with a knife could kill him, that type of cripple. Who exactly is it? Tumultuous waves surged in Xikong Luan's heart. As the leader of the Defying Divine Society, viewed as a rat crossing the street by the 36 states of the Central Plains, Xikong Luan was very clear in his mind. He was certainly no match for the 36 states equipped with nation-protecting divine weapons. That's why he had placed great emphasis on concealment when establishing the headquarters of the Defying Divine Society. And beneath the headquarters, he had dug layers of tunnels, so that even if a trace of evidence was detected, he could swiftly escape through the tunnels, preserving his strength. But just now, Xikong Luan couldn't help feeling a chill. More than 20 blood-refining martial saints, wantonly exerting their vital energies' oppressive force. Thousands of organ refinement innate martial masters and marrow refinement grandmasters taking action swiftly. Under such suppression, not even he, the leader of the headquarters, got away, let alone the other members. Which power made the move? The Greater Yan dynasty, or one of the other 35 states? No. Xikong Luan frowned deeply. If he had fallen into the hands of the 36 states of the Central Plains, how could he possibly still be alive? The 36 states of the Central Plains always dealt with the likes of their Defying Divine Society remnants by killing them outright, leaving no troubles behind. As for severe torture to extract information about other remnants' whereabouts, The Defying Divine Society was very strict in its structure, and as such a leader, he had other means within his body. If anyone dared disclose vital secrets, they would immediately die explosively. And ordinary members wouldn't know much, so there was no point in interrogating them. Despite racking his brains, Xikong Luan couldn't figure out which force had targeted him. This place should still be Wuyan City. Xikong Luan barely lifted the curtain and glanced outside. Forget it. Whether I live or die, I can't decide. Xikong Luan had no thoughts of escaping. What a joke. A mysterious force that could mobilize over 20 martial saints. Could he possibly escape from the carriage? About half an hour later, the carriage finally stopped. Xikong Luan immediately perked up. Then the carriage door opened, and a man invited him to step out. Xikong Luan took one look at the man. He seemed familiar, and he quickly recognized him. This man was one of the more than 20 blood-refining martial saints who had acted earlier. With the status of a blood-refining martial saint in the 36 states of the Central Plains, he was now serving as his coachman? Xikong Luan took a deep breath. He gained a deeper understanding of the means of the person behind the scenes. Stepping down from the carriage, Xikong Luan followed the martial saint coachman into the residence before them. To call it a residence was an understatement. It was more like an imperial palace. Inside, the layout was intricate, filled with various palaces. In the deepest part of one palace, Xikong Luan met the person behind the moves against the Defying Divine Society. This was a young man, radiating an unspeakably noble air. Mere sitting there made Xikong Luan feel somewhat ashamed. You may leave now. Lin Yuan looked up, waved his hand, and dismissed the coachman martial saint. Yes, master. The coachman martial saint respectfully left the grand hall. Master. Xikong Luan swallowed hard. A mighty blood-refining martial saint acknowledging this young man as his master? If it hadn't been for witnessing it with his own eyes, Xikong Luan would never have believed it. After a silence, Xikong Luan steadied his mind and took the initiative to speak. May I ask, sir, for what reason you have captured me? At this moment, Xikong Luan also realized that he must be of some use to this young man. Otherwise he wouldn't be standing before him. I want to know. What exactly does your Defying Divine Society use to contend against the 36 nations nation-protecting divine weapons? And what is this evil soldier? Lin Yuan asked. Upon hearing this, Xikong Luan displayed a look of astonishment. He had thought that the other party wanted to learn about the other headquarters of the Defying Divine Society. Xikong Luan had been prepared that should Lin Yuan inquire about these matters, he would immediately trigger the mechanism within his body, dying by his own hand. But he hadn't expected this question. Divine weapons reign supreme. How could we mere mortals confront them? Xikong Luan paused for a moment, as if organizing his thoughts. Since ancient times, only a divine weapon can contend against another divine weapon. That is an iron law. Chapter 74. Since we're here already, only a divine weapon can combat another divine weapon? Lin Yuan's expression remained calm. There was nothing wrong with this statement. For thousands of years, under the covert influence of the divine weapons, the martial arts system of this world had become deformed, merely honing the physical body and enhancing the vitality. Even if there were extremely talented individuals, they would still only reach the stage of a blood refinement martial saint, becoming delicacies in the eyes of many divine weapons. The blood refinement martial saint corresponds at most to the second layer's ultimate level. The divine weapons, at the very least, are on the brink of the fourth rank. The gap between the two, if measured by the ranks of the main world, spans at least a dozen realms. Are you saying that these so-called evil soldiers are also divine weapons? Lin Yuan asked with interest. Indeed, that is the case, Xikong Luan nodded and said. Given your status, it shouldn't be difficult to know that all divine weapons originate from 10,000 years ago. 10,000 years ago, an ancient godly being sacrificed mountains and rivers, melted the seas, and forged many divine weapons. All the divine weapons of the present age come from that era. Lin Yuan's thoughts fluctuated, yet he continued to gaze calmly at Xikong Luan. Feeling the pressure of Lin Yuan's gaze, Xikong Luan felt a great deal of pressure and continued, 10,000 years ago, the divine weapons forged by the ancient godly being were far more than 36. But something happened later. Most of the divine weapons were shattered, leaving only 36 intact divine weapons. Those shattered divine weapons were later declared evil soldiers by the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. Sikong Luan said all this in one breath. This information was extremely confidential even within the Defying Divine Society, known only to leaders like him. However, these secrets did not touch on the foundation of the Defying Divine Society, so he had the authority to disclose them. So that's how it is. Lin Yuan resolved many doubts in his heart. Sir, although I do not know which power you belong to, the 36 nation protecting divine weapons regard us, the human race, as pigs and dogs, consuming a great number of living human sacrifices periodically. Who can tolerate such actions? Sikong Luan spoke up immediately when Lin Yuan remained silent. The Defying Divine Society had managed to survive the siege of the 36 nations by relying not only on some evil soldiers for protection, but also because the divine weapons practice of consuming humans easily ignited the rebellious spirit among many of the human race. As long as the truth is known, a significant number of people, if not joining the Defying Divine Society, at least would not stand in opposition to it. After all, you might not resist the rule of the divine weapons, but there is also no need to obstruct the Defying Divine Society. After all, should the Defying Divine Society ever overturn the divine weapons one day, as a member of the human race, you too would benefit. Do you want me to join the Defying Divine Society? A flicker of unusual expression crossed Lin Yuan's face. He indeed had thoughts about the Defying Divine Society, but it was not about him joining them, but rather making them serve him. Bring an evil soldier here, and I will consider it. Lin Yuan contemplated for a moment before speaking. So far, Lin Yuan was still no match for a fully empowered divine weapon. But if he couldn't handle a divine weapon, couldn't he handle an evil soldier? Evil soldiers, being shattered remnants of divine weapons, retained only 1% of their strength, and with years of hiding and not being able to consume a large amount of living humans' vitality and soul, their strength was, at most, slightly stronger than a martial saint, roughly equivalent to a weakened version of a martial god. In such cases, Lin Yuan started pondering the study of evil soldiers. Regardless of how weak, after all, they were once divine weapons, and with his against heaven's understanding, perhaps he could uncover the weaknesses of the divine weapons from them. Consider it? Sikong Lun's pupils slightly contracted. His earlier words were meant to evoke Lin Yuan's pity, thereby sparing his life. Unexpectedly, Lin Yuan was seriously considering it? It's known that the rationale of divine weapons consuming living beings rarely affects real powerful figures. After all, these powerful figures stand at high positions, and even if divine weapons truly consumed humans, it wouldn't affect them personally. And in Sikong Lun's eyes, Lin Yuan was undoubtedly among the most powerful of figures. Fine. But I need to return to the headquarters. There is a fragment of a divine weapon that no one else but me can find, Sikong Luan decisively agreed. He could think of no reason for Lin Yuan to deceive him. Even though evil soldiers are fragments of divine weapons, they possess their own consciousness. Let alone 20 martial saints, not even 200 could contain an evil soldier. Under Lin Yuan's command, Sikong Luan successfully left the imperial palace. If such a major figure really joins the Defying Divine Society, Sikong Luan felt elated. Although Lin Yuan had never revealed his true identity throughout, from the destruction of the Defying Divine Society's headquarters by various powerhouses, one could sense his formidable and inscrutable power. With the support of such a character, the future days of the Defying Divine Society would undoubtedly be much better. Thinking this, Sikong Lun's pace quickened once again. Defying Divine Society headquarters. This place had already been razed, but a few still guarded it. Returning here, Sikong Luan felt a mix of emotions and also brought Lin Yuan's orders. Soon, Sikong Luan reached the deepest part of the underground. This was a stone chamber, completely empty. Sikong Luan approached a corner, muttered a few words, then dribbled a few drops of blood. Thunder rumbled. A stone door slowly opened. Seeing this, Sikong Luan let out a slight sigh of relief. The open stone door meant that the evil soldier had not left. It's known that each evil soldier possesses its own consciousness. If the Defying Divine Society headquarters was destroyed, it was only natural for the evil soldier confined here to have left. Entering the stone gate, Sikong Luan walked up to a stone platform. His expression respectful, he spoke softly. I have seen the superior. On the stone platform rested a fragment. It seemed to be a part of a mirror. Oh! Wasn't this Defying Divine Society wiped out? How are you still alive? A wave of spiritual fluctuation emitted from the fragment on the stone platform. The tone carried a hint of interest. It's like this. Xikong Luan shared everything he knew. There was no choice. If he wanted to bring the evil soldier to meet Lin Yuan, he needed the evil soldier to be willing. So that's how it is. The spiritual fluctuation of the fragment slowly transmitted. You want this seat, when meeting that person, to directly take control of him? The fragment continued to inquire. The fragment was a part of the divine weapon Saint Heart Mirror. Even though broken, it still possessed the ability to confuse and enslave the hearts of men. However, this ability should be used as infrequently as possible, for it too burdens the fragment itself. The most critical issue was, the evil soldier's actions, emitting fluctuations, could easily be caught by real divine weapons, thus leading to the awakening of the nation-protecting divine weapons. This was also the reason why the Saint Heart Mirror fragment did not act when the Defying Divine Society headquarters was destroyed. Of course, this probability was very small, but for the evil soldier, it couldn't be ignored. However, that was in relation to enslaving ordinary people. If the Saint Heart Mirror fragment could control Lin Yuan, such a significant figure, then the gains would far outweigh the risks. Not to mention, just amongst Lin Yuan's subordinates, the more than 20 martial saints, if the Saint Heart Mirror fragment could consume 10 of them, then it would greatly heal the original damage of the Saint Heart Mirror fragment. In the Central Plains 36 kingdoms, each kingdom has its nation-protecting divine weapons, which can consume a large number of living human sacrifices periodically. But an evil soldier like the Saint Heart Mirror fragment does not enjoy such treatment. Are you sure what you're saying is true? The Saint Heart Mirror fragment once again emitted spiritual fluctuations. Superior, every word I said is true. Xikong Luan solemnly stated. If you want the evil soldier to make a move, it is impossible without a price. Good. Take me there. The Saint Heart Mirror fragment floated up and landed in Xikong Luan's hand. Xikong Luan, carrying the Saint Heart Mirror fragment, soon returned to the outside of the imperial residence. Such a deeply missed scent. The Saint Heart Mirror fragment, hidden within Xikong Luan's embrace, emitted faint spiritual waves. Just standing at the doorway, it sensed 7 or 8 martial saints' presences. Blood refinement martial saints. Even for genuine nation-protecting divine weapons, these were rare to encounter and not every time available for consumption. Let alone in the eyes of an evil soldier like the Saint Heart Mirror fragment, treated as a street rat. The Saint Heart Mirror fragment could not remember the last time it tasted a blood refinement martial saint. 200 years ago? 300 years ago? Or 500 years ago? With a sentiment of reminiscence and excitement, the Saint Heart Mirror fragment moved closer to the Grand Hall in the depths, along with Xikong Luan. The fleeting aura flashes along the way further excited the Saint Heart Mirror fragment. At this moment, the Saint Heart Mirror fragment had only one thought, which was to control Lin Yuan as soon as possible. Then, through ordering Lin Yuan, have these blood refinement martial saints be consumed one by it. Shortly after, Xikong Luan stopped in front of the Grand Hall at the deepest part. It was in this Grand Hall that he had met Lin Yuan, who must still be inside waiting for him. Superior, we have arrived. Xikong Luan touched his chest, reminding the Saint Heart Mirror fragment. I know. The Saint Heart Mirror fragment emitted an impatient spiritual fluctuation. However, out of caution, it still subconsciously used the residual power of the divine weapon to sense inside the Grand Hall. What is this? The mind of the Saint Heart Mirror fragment instantly boiled. Through the close sensing of the divine weapon, it instinctively perceived an extremely dangerous aura. What's going on? The Saint Heart Mirror fragment was puzzled and shocked. Under the heavens, only true divine weapons could pose a threat to it. And through the connection between divine weapons, it confirmed that there were no divine weapons inside the Grand Hall. No divine weapons, yet such a deadly threat. The Saint Heart Mirror fragment found it incomprehensible. Forget it. This place is not suitable for a long stay. After a few breaths of thought, the Saint Heart Mirror fragment decided to retreat. Its spiritual fluctuation reluctantly swept over the nearby blood refinement martial saints one last time before it completely withdrew them. Whoosh! A streak of light flew up from Xikong Luan's chest. Looking closely, one would see that at the core of this light, there was the appearance of a fragment of a mirror. Let's go. The Saint Heart mirror fragment flew toward the outside of the imperial residence. Just then, a voice came from inside the grand hall. "You've come all this way, won't you come in and take a look?" In an instant, the power of heaven and earth within several miles boiled. The power of Tai Yin and the power of Tai Yong merged, forming a great black and white hand that seemed to grasp a chicken. It caught the escaping Saint Heart mirror fragment in its palm, and then swiftly shrank toward the inner hall. Chapter 75. The battle 8,000 years ago outside the Great Hall. Xikong Lun's mind was like mush. He had not yet recovered from the act of the Saint Heart mirror shard escaping in the midst of battle. Then he saw a colossal hand that was half black and half white, effortlessly yank back the Saint Heart mirror into the hall, as if snatching a chicken. Xikong Luan saw clearly, just as the colossal hand of black and white stretched out. The Saint Heart mirror shard suddenly burst forth with a profound black radiance, its aura shaking heaven and earth. Yet, under the might of that colossal hand, the profound radiance was like fire meeting water, dissolving in an instant. This, Xikong Lun's heart trembled. That was an evil soldier, and a true divine weapon shard. Without the emergence of divine weapons, their shards are invincible. Impenetrable by human force, that is an ironclad rule. But now, Xikong Luan discovered that the divine weapon shard was not as strong as he imagined. At least before that colossal hand of black and white, it seemed remarkably fragile. That's not right. A shock suddenly pervaded Xikong Lun's heart. It wasn't that the divine weapon shard was frail. Instead, that colossal hand of black and white was far too powerful. In this world, how can there be something so powerful? Xikong Luan was in utter disarray, and his thoughts briefly turned to Lin Yuan, whom he had seen not long ago. That colossal hand of black and white must have been Lin Yuan's doing. But Lin Yuan was neither a divine weapon nor a weapon wielder, so how could he possibly possess the strength to overpower a divine weapon shard? According to the many years of intelligence gathered by the Defying Divine Society, all weapon wielders are deeply influenced by the divine weapons, inherently bearing an aura that is cold, indifferent, and aloof. And on this point, Lin Yuan clearly did not fit. Inside the Great Hall, Lin Yuan was sitting casually in front of a desk. Before him, a fragment that resembled a mirror was floating. "Are you human?" "No, how could a human cultivate to your extent?" The Saint Heart mirror shard sent out waves of terrified spiritual thought. Compared to its perception outside the Great Hall, now in front of Lin Yuan, the shard was deeply shocked by Lin Yuan's vast and ocean-like aura. While still not on par with a fully awakened divine weapon, it was far superior to a divine weapon shard like itself. In the eyes of the Saint Heart mirror shard, this was utterly inconceivable, beyond all reason. The cultivating system of this world has its ultimate endpoint at the blood refinement martial saint. Beyond that there's simply no path to tread, no way to advance. But Lin Yuan, this is the essence of divine weapons. A strange glint crossed Lin Yuan's face, as the Saint Heart mirror shard before him appeared to be nothing more than a mere fragment. But through Lin Yuan's eyes, it seemed like the most perfect thing in the world. Observing the Saint Heart mirror shard was like observing a part of the heavens and earth. No, it was like observing a part of the heavens and earth laid bare, revealing its essence. Your perception defies the heavens, you gaze upon a part of the world's fundamental laws, should you comprehend something. Your perception defies the heavens, you gaze upon a part of the world's fundamental laws, should you comprehend something. Your perception defies the heavens, you gaze upon a part of the world's fundamental laws, should you comprehend something. So-called divine weapons, are they an external manifestation of the laws of this world? Lin Yuan mused thoughtfully. As his strength continuously advanced further at the third rank level, Lin Yuan began to vaguely sense the fundamental laws that support the heavens and earth, sustaining the operation of the world. Even in the main world, Lin Yuan felt the sensation. Although the fundamental laws there were exceptionally powerful, even with all effort to comprehend, his gains were minuscule, much like the time Lin Yuan tried to perceive the endless cosmos. The progress was excruciatingly slow, and to understand the arcane rules governing the operation of the endless cosmos, even sitting in meditation for 10,000, 100,000, or 1,000,000 years may not suffice. Having arrived in this world, although the essence of the world is far inferior to the main world, trying to perceive the fundamental laws here is still far from easy. After all, any world, no matter how weak, has formed a perfect cycle. All fundamental essences are concealed within, making it incredibly difficult to perceive them. Yet now, as Lin Yuan looked at the Saint Heart mirror shard before him, his gaze lit up with fervent excitement. Divine weapons like the Saint Heart mirror are manifestations of the world's essence, which is why they could develop spiritual wisdom and be innately powerful. As such, because they represent the external manifestation of the world's fundamental essence, observing these kinds of divine weapons is far easier than directly perceiving the fundamentals of the heavens and earth. Especially so for the Saint Heart mirror itself, having shattered, the fundamental laws revealed within are even clearer. Merely by observing and contemplating for a while, Lin Yuan managed to perfect the martial Tao cultivation system slightly, saving a day or two of work. What exactly do you intend to do? This seat is a divine weapon of heaven and earth, indestructible. Seeing Lin Yuan staring at himself with fervent eyes, the Saint Heart mirror shard felt somewhat uneasy. With your strength in the eyes of those 36 old fellows, you are no doubt a highly sought-after delicacy, the most delicious meal in thousands of years. If you release this seat, I will teach you a secret technique that can hide from the perception of those 36 old fellows. How about that? The Saint Heart mirror shard immediately began to negotiate terms. The 36 old fellows it referred to were naturally the 36 complete nation-protecting divine weapons. Indestructible. Lin Yuan sent a portion of his consciousness to size up the Saint Heart mirror shard up and down. Indeed, as a manifestation of the laws of heaven and earth, at least in this world, the Saint Heart mirror shard was indestructible. Of course, indestructible here meant completely indestructible, not even leaving behind fragments. As for going from a complete divine weapon to being shattered, that was still achievable. Indestructible are only the divine weapons themselves, but as for the consciousness of spiritual wisdom, that can still be worn down, right? Lin Yuan countered with a smile that was not quite a smile. At this remark, the Saint Heart mirror shard was immediately alarmed. How do you know? The Saint Heart mirror shard couldn't believe it. When the original Saint Heart mirror was shattered, its original consciousness had already vanished. The current Saint Heart mirror shard was merely a new consciousness that had been born over a long time from the fragment itself. And not only this shard of the Saint Heart mirror, but other shards had similarly given birth to new consciousness. It was precisely because of this reason that shards like the Saint Heart mirror, which were considered evil soldiers, feared the true complete divine weapons. They were worried about falling into the hands of the others and then having their consciousness erased. However, such matters had always been a secret among the divine weapons. Other divine weapon shards wouldn't possibly divulge this to mere mortals. As for the secret technique, I don't need you to tell me. I can obtain it myself. Lin Yuan's eyes faintly displayed an inexplicable vortex, with the black and white marks of Taiji spreading and pervading, as tremendous spiritual otherworldly forces and soul powers abruptly descended toward the Saint Heart mirror shard for suppression. Lin Yuan planned to soul-search the Saint Heart mirror shard. Since the Saint Heart mirror shard had given birth to its own consciousness, it was considered a living being and could have its memories forcibly accessed. This kind of soul-search secret technique was something that Lin Yuan had created after observing various soul and spirit evolution paths. Similar secret methods existed in the main world, and they likely served more or less the same purpose. What exactly do you want to do? The Saint Heart mirror shard suddenly shrieked. Its body once again lit up with dark-colored light. Alas, under the suppression of Lin Yuan's Taiji field, all of the dark-colored light rapidly dissipated, and a vast and invisible force invaded deep into the shard. Through the method of soul search, Lin Yuan browsed through the other's memories as if he were looking at flowers while riding past on horseback. Since the Saint Heart mirror itself had already shattered, many memories were incomplete. But Lin Yuan still found the information he wanted. According to the description in the memories, it was an event that occurred 8,000 years ago. Atop the 9 heavens, violent winds swept through that could easily tear apart a blood refinement martial saint. This place was a forbidden zone for life. But at this moment, there stood over 100 terrifying presences. The sources of these terrifying presences were unmistakably various weapons of war. Blade, spear, sword, halberd, bell, cauldron, and so on. What is that? Through the memories, Lin Yuan saw a long spear. It seemed as if all the light of heaven and earth was converging upon that spear. The body of the spear was engraved with the sun and moon, surrounded by an extremely sharp force. The sun and moon spear. It was the nation-protecting divine weapon of the Greater Yan dynasty. It was also one of the 36 complete divine weapons of the current age. Chapter 76 50 Years. Are all of these 100 weapons divine weapons? Lin Yuan looked around, his expression slightly somber. Through the memories of the Saint Heart Mirror Shards, Lin Yuan quickly confirmed the total number of weapons. Including the source of Lin Yuan's current perspective, that is, a divine weapon resembling a mirror. Complete divine weapon. The Saint Heart Mirror. So, 10,000 years ago, the total number of divine weapons was actually 100? Lin Yuan thought to himself. For over 20 years, he had been collecting information about divine weapons. The numerous pieces of intelligence he had obtained all mentioned that in ancient times, the number of divine weapons exceeded 36. Later, due to some unknown event, most of the divine weapons had disappeared. However, there was no specific information on how many divine weapons there were. Only now, by viewing the memories through the Saint Heart Mirror Shard, had Lin Yuan confirmed the total number of divine weapons. 100. 100 divine weapons. Just as Lin Yuan continued to observe these divine weapons. Boom! The centralmost tower-shaped divine weapon stirred. Its tremendous power exploded, affecting the other divine weapons. This caused the other divine weapons to be forced into action. The spear engraved with the sun and moon gently thrust forward, its sharp aura converging, directly piercing through a fan-shaped divine weapon. A melee ensued among the 100 divine weapons. Heaven and earth were in turmoil. If the battlefield had not been in the 9 heavens, far from the ground, there probably wouldn't have been anything left of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms by now. The melee lasted for several months. In the end, most of the divine weapons were shattered, turning into fragments scattered across the 4 corners of the world. Only 36 divine weapons still stood in the arena. These 36 divine weapons included the nation-protecting divine weapon Sun and Moon Spear of the Greater Yan Dynasty today. The aura emanating from the Sun and Moon Spear at that time was somewhat unstable, but it was clearly the victor. The melee among the divine weapons. Lin Yuan thought to himself. As for the cause of the melee, Lin Yuan could roughly guess it. The divine weapons needed to consume the human race in order to grow slowly. But the number of humans was limited. With the appetite of 100 divine weapons, the human race of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms could not satisfy them. That was what ultimately led to this great battle. Only the most powerful divine weapons were entitled to enjoy the blood feast. As for the weaker divine weapons, they were directly shattered to extinction. In front of the desk, Lin Yuan set down the Saint Heart Mirror Shard he was holding. His expression turned ponderous. This time he had traveled from afar, leaving the capital, coming to Wuyan City. It was indeed the right decision. He had not only acquired a divine weapon shard that could be described as a manifestation of the essence of the rules, but had also learned about that great war 8,000 years ago, not recorded in any book. The great battle among 100 divine weapons. Master! Master, spare my life! From the desk, the Saint Heart Mirror Shard emitted a faint spiritual fluctuation. While forcibly conducting a soul search, Lin Yuan also casually refined the mirror shard. If it had been a complete divine weapon, Lin Yuan would not have been able to refine it, but as it was only a shard, it naturally could not withstand Lin Yuan. After refining the Saint Heart Mirror Shard, Lin Yuan then had absolute control over its consciousness. Even if he could not destroy the shard, erasing the consciousness within it was merely a matter of thought. The Saint Heart Mirror Shard was also aware of its predicament, completely shifting from its previous negotiating stance, directly addressing Lin Yuan as master. Spare your life. Lin Yuan glanced at the Saint Heart Mirror Shard. He realized the essence of the rules within the Saint Heart Mirror Shard, which had nothing to do with its consciousness. Even if the consciousness were to vanish, as long as the shard itself existed, the essence of the rules would remain, not impeding Lin Yuan's realization. However, now the survival or destruction of this consciousness was within a single thought from Lin Yuan, so there was no need to erase it so quickly. Otherwise, who knows how many years it would be before another consciousness emerged. Moreover, a divine weapon shard with its own consciousness indeed had some use for Lin Yuan. At least it could revive spontaneously, without Lin Yuan having to stimulate it. Outside the Grand Hall, Xikong Luan was somewhat at a loss. As soon as the Saint Heart Mirror Shard was forcibly pulled into the Grand Hall, Xikong Luan realized that his most significant support might have fallen. At this moment, Xikong Luan felt both joy and anxiety. The way Lin Yuan effortlessly suppressed the evil soldier gave Xikong Luan a tinge of ambition he shouldn't possess. For thousands of years, the human race had been mere food for the divine weapons. Never had anyone been able to counter the divine weapons, even just a divine weapon shard. However, Lin Yuan's arrival disrupted this balance. Yet, what Lin Yuan's origins truly were and whether he was indeed a human, or if he would stand on the side of the divine weapon, remained unclear to Xikong Luan. Time slipped away. While Xikong Luan became lost in his chaotic thoughts, a voice resounded silently by his ear. "Come inside as well." "Yes." Xikong Luan took a deep breath. As if facing judgment, he stepped inside the great hall. The interior of the hall was just as Xikong Luan remembered it. The only difference was a casually placed fragment of a mirror on the table where Lin Yuan sat. A mirror fragment? Xikong Luan swallowed hard, realizing that it wasn't just any piece of mirror, but rather a revered and worshipped evil soldier of their defying divine society. "My lord." Xikong Luan fell to his knees with a thud. Lin Yuan glanced at him casually. "From today onward, I want your defying divine society to submit to me completely. Can you do that?" Lin Yuan asked indifferently. The influence of the defying divine society spanned all of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. The branch where Xikong Luan was located was merely one headquarters within the Greater Yan dynasty. Such a headquarters was one of 35 others, all hidden within the other 35 kingdoms. Lin Yuan's implied command was for Xikong Luan to subjugate the other 35 headquarters of the Defying Divine Society. To bring the entire Defying Divine Society under Lin Yuan's command. Facing Lin Yuan's words, Xikong Luan fell silent. If it had been anyone else who spoke to him like this, Xikong Luan would have refused without a second thought. The Defying Divine Society represented the last line in opposing the rule of the divine weapons. Even if they worshipped an evil soldier, it was only to bolster their courage against the true divine weapons. Xikong Luan could die, but the Defying Divine Society must never perish. Otherwise, all of the human race in the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms would forever become mere fodder for the divine weapons. "I just want to know one thing." Xikong Luan stared at Lin Yuan and asked desperately, "Are you human, and how do you view the divine weapons?" "Human." A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. He looked at Xikong Luan, who was ready to face death, and slowly said, "I am indeed human, and as for those divine weapons, I've disliked them for quite some time." Upon hearing this, Xikong Luan felt an immense relief. "Going forward, the Defying Divine Society will follow your lead," Xikong Luan said respectfully. Having received the answer he sought, Xikong Luan's heart finally relaxed completely. To preserve the spark of hope for the human race, the Defying Divine Society was even willing to worship a former divine weapon as an evil soldier. How much more so for Lin Yuan, who was a human? The capabilities Lin Yuan demonstrated provided Xikong Luan with hope of resisting the divine weapons. Thus, leading the rest of the Defying Divine Society to pledge allegiance to him was only natural. After subjugating Xikong Luan, Lin Yuan issued his first command. It was to report all known intelligence about the evil soldiers possessed by the Defying Divine Society. For Lin Yuan, each evil soldier represented an external manifestation of the world's essential laws. Observing their essence held great benefits and could significantly enhance the martial path evolutionary path, aiding Lin Yuan to advance sooner to the 4th rank. And not just to the 4th rank, but it also elevated the effect on the martial path evolutionary path. "Does my lord intend to continue subjugating those evil soldiers?" Xikong Luan immediately discerned Lin Yuan's intentions. "You must be cautious, my lord. These evil soldiers are not easily subdued," Xikong Luan said softly. Though Lin Yuan had overwhelmingly suppressed the fragment of the Saint Heart Mirror, there is a difference between a divine weapon and its fragments. Some fragments, being larger and containing more of the full divine weapon, possess greater power. Even if they still can't defeat Lin Yuan, if one were to escape, it could still cause future troubles. "No matter." Lin Yuan waved his hand dismissively. With his current strength, no divine weapons could emerge, and he could instantly suppress any number of fragments. Time slipped away. Another 50 years had passed. Chapter 77 Disaster of War for the Central Plains 36 Kingdoms. With their history of thousands of years, 50 years did not amount to much. To most ordinary people, it probably wasn't any different from the past. However, The royal families of the 36 kingdoms subtly perceived the slight abnormalities of the past 50 years. It mainly involved the remnants of the Defying Divine Society, whose actions were growing increasingly bold. The Defying Divine Society, as an underground organization expelled and wanted by the Central Plains 36 kingdoms, was always like a rat crossing the street. To recruit new members, they always operated in a stealthy manner. Yet in recent years, these remnants of the Defying Divine Society became more arrogant, even daring to pull in people on the streets. The most shocking thing for the royal families was that every time they launched an encirclement campaign, the remnants of the Defying Divine Society seemed to receive advanced warnings, managing to escape coincidentally. This made the royal families realize that the Defying Divine Society had come prepared. As a result, the Central Plains 36 kingdoms stepped up their suppression of the Defying Divine Society even further. In fact, 36 and 19 years ago, the Central Plains 36 kingdoms even deployed divine weapon masters, aiming to harness the power of the nation-protecting divine weapons to deal a heavy blow to the Defying Divine Society. Unfortunately, the divine weapon masters of the Evil God Association intervened in time. Tying up the divine weapon masters of the 36 kingdoms allowed most of the elite members of the Defying Divine Society to leave in advance. The Central Plains 36 kingdoms possessed nation-protecting divine weapons. By leveraging the power of nation-protecting divine weapons, they could train divine weapon masters. Although the Defying Divine Society did not have complete divine weapons, they possessed many divine weapon fragments. These were known as evil soldiers. Evil soldiers were essentially divine weapons in their essence. Provided an evil soldier's completeness met a certain standard, it was possible to train a divine weapon master. Of course, the Central Plains 36 kingdoms referred to such masters as evil soldier masters. In direct combat, evil soldier masters naturally did not match up to divine weapon masters, but the former could slightly interfere with the latter. Unless the divine weapon master invoked the full awakening of their divine weapon, it was difficult to capture an evil soldier master. In general, a divine weapon master would not allow a divine weapon to fully awaken, because doing so meant their lifespan would be drastically reduced. The soul essence drawn by a fully awakened divine weapon would reach a horrific level. Every time a divine weapon fully awakened, the divine weapon master would live 10 years less. In a secret underground square, a towering man sat cross-legged in the very center. Around him were scattered dozens of weapon fragments. If there were an evil soldier master from the Defying Divine Society present, they would be horrified to discover that these weapon fragments were indeed evil soldiers. Evil soldiers, the fragments of divine weapons. Although far less powerful than divine weapons, they too transcended the limits of the mundane. Yet at the moment, these supreme evil soldiers were treated like ordinary items, carelessly strewn across the ground. 50 years. The towering man Lin Yuan slowly opened his eyes. For the majority of those 50 years, he was contemplating the essential nature of the laws within the divine weapon fragments. As for the many state affairs of the Greater Yan dynasty, over 40 years ago, Lin Yuan had specially selected a group of capable and loyal officials, establishing the cabinet to handle state matters on behalf of the emperor. Lin Yuan only needed to return from time to check on things. As an emperor, the most taboo thing is to micromanage everything. How many matters can one country have? If one were to inquire into each one, wouldn't it be exhausting to death? Of course, like Lin Yuan's long periods of disengagement, this was rare and typically a major taboo for emperors, as it easily led to being sidelined. But with Lin Yuan's strength, who could afford to sideline him, as he held immense force in one body? 4th rank. Lin Yuan looked towards the divine weapon fragments around him, his face falling into brief contemplation. With Lin Yuan's speed of cultivation, he had reached the completion of the Heaven-Man realm 20 years ago. And the completion of Heaven-Man realm, if placed in the main world, would be considered just short of 4th rank. But to break through further, to formally step into 4th rank, Lin Yuan was somewhat hesitant. The transition from 3rd rank to 4th rank, even in the main world, was a major bottleneck and shackles. Any evolver who could cultivate to the extreme pinnacle of 3rd rank was 1 in a million, 10 million, or even 1 in 100 million. A prodigy. Even so, to cross this major bottleneck and shackles, one would need at least hundreds of years, with many dying old at the extreme pinnacle of 3rd rank. This was under the premise of having a complete evolution path for guidance. For someone like Lin Yuan, who was carving out an evolution path, every step taken on a completely unknown road, breaking through to 4th rank was going to be 1,000-fold or even 10,000-fold more difficult. Of course, this 1,000-fold or 10,000-fold is relative to Lin Yuan's current strength at the extreme pinnacle of 3rd rank. If it were a higher-level evolver such as at 5th rank or 6th rank, overseeing from a high level, carving out an evolution path would naturally be much easier. In fact, even with a 1,000-fold or 10,000-fold difficulty, with Lin Yuan's unreasonable against heaven's understanding, he should have broken through to 4th rank by now. But Lin Yuan kept hesitating. 4th rank and 4th rank are also not the same. For example, a heavenly master who ascended through the power of Tai-Yin or Tai-Yin is naturally of a different concept from one who ascended through the Tao of Taiji. This time, ascending to the 4th rank, Lin Yuan wanted to ascend through the essence of the rules contained within the divine weapon fragments. Ascending to the 4th rank in this way would definitely be the kind with the greatest potential. Over the past 50 years, Lin Yuan had collected dozens of divine weapon fragments, integrating their essence of rules into the martial Tao cultivation system. But these fragmented essences of rules were still too few for Lin Yuan. They weren't enough to support his ascension to the 4th rank. Divine Weapon Master. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. Over the years, the Defying Divine Society had helped him collect divine weapon fragments that were naturally weaker. There was no help for it, for divine weapon fragments had their own consciousness. Even if Xikong Luan borrowed help and coaxed, he could only fool those ordinary divine weapon fragments. As for the truly powerful divine weapon fragments, the Defying Divine Society wasn't able to track them. Usually, these fragments had already cultivated their own weapon masters and lay dormant within them. The Defying Divine Society and these evil soldier masters tended to have a cooperative relationship. Neither could command the other. Each time the Defying Divine Society asked these evil soldier masters to take action, a great price had to be paid. Even so, the Defying Divine Society and these evil soldier masters, under the suppression of the Central Plains 36 kingdoms, were considered to be in the same camp. Evil soldier masters answered to evil soldiers, but evil soldiers were the losers of that war of 100 divine weapons 8,000 years ago, broken by the strongest 36 divine weapons, scattered across the world. Therefore, evil soldiers had a natural grudge against the 36 divine weapons, their positions inherently opposed. As for the Defying Divine Society, it was a power made up of people who wished to rebel against the rule of divine weapons. They, too, were opposed to the 36 divine weapons. An enemy's enemy is a friend. Therefore, the Defying Divine Society and the evil soldiers naturally had an alliance. The previous anti-god association headquarters of Xikong Luan was suppressed by fragments of the martial saint realm. It was just that Lin Yuan had sent over 20 martial saints to trample that headquarters, a task completed too swiftly. So quickly that the martial saint realm fragments didn't even react before the fight was over. As Lin Yuan was deep in thought, sequence of faint footsteps grew closer from afar. Greeting the master. The person arriving was Xikong Luan. 50 years had passed, and Xikong Luan had aged much, with many white hairs on his head. Lin Yuan glanced at Xikong Luan and nodded slightly. Over the years, Xikong Luan had done quite well, continuously traveling between the Central Plains 36 kingdoms. Now many anti-god association headquarters were obedient to Lin Yuan, and Xikong Luan's efforts were indispensable. After all, Lin Yuan was immersed in cultivation and, to avoid attracting the attention of the real divine weapons, he made very few appearances. State your business. Lin Yuan spoke bluntly. After 50 years of acquaintance, he knew Xikong Luan quite well and understood that the other wouldn't come here without an important reason. Master. Those evil soldier masters wish to meet with you to discuss the matter of a decisive battle with the 36 kingdoms of the Central Plains. Xikong Luan hesitated for a moment before speaking softly. Decisive battle? Aren't they afraid of another calamity of soldiers? Lin Yuan frowned slightly. Calamity of soldiers refer to disasters caused by battles between divine weapons. 8,000 years ago, when the War of 100 divine weapons ended, the situation was clear. The 36 divine weapons each dominated a kingdom, feasting on the lifeblood of the living. But why does the history of the Greater Yan dynasty span only over 3,600 years? It wasn't just the Greater Yan dynasty. The histories of the other 35 states of the Central Plains were also 3,000 to 4,000 years old. The cause lies in the great decisive battle initiated by many evil soldiers and the Defying Divine Society, 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. That decisive battle enraged the 36 nation protecting divine weapons. All 36 divine weapons awakened and began suppressing the evil soldiers, who had regained significant strength at that time. Their battles affected the lands of the Central Plains, leading to the downfall of dynasties and the lamentation of all beings. The 36 divine weapons suppressed on one hand and harvested the blood, spirits, and souls of the people on the other. It resulted in a major setback for the human race, which only recovered after several hundred to 1,000 years. But the effects of the battle continued. Old dynasties fell, and new 36 kingdoms were established. This was the origin of the Greater Yan dynasty and the other 35 states. This period was later referred to as the Calamity of Soldiers. Chapter 78. Lords of the Evil Soldiers. Few knew of the calamity caused by the weapons. Even within the royal families of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, very few were aware. At least the Greater Yan dynasty had no records of it. Lin Yuan had learned about this extremely dark history from the ancient volumes of the Defying Divine Society. The 36 divine weapons revived, began to harvest lives without limits. It was a dark period, almost like an apocalypse. I'm not sure either. Xikong Luan was also puzzled. Although he didn't understand as clearly as Lin Yuan. But he knew that the current Defying Divine Society and wielders of the evil soldiers were far from being a match for the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. Even though the Defying Divine Society's influence had grown significantly over the past 50 years with Lin Yuan's covert support, making the royal families of the 36 kingdoms extremely troubled. But there was still a gap in their pinnacle combat power. What could the Defying Divine Society use to confront the fully revived 36 divine weapons? If they couldn't, there was a high likelihood of repeating the weapon calamity from 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. Could it be? Lin Yuan's expression shifted slightly. Even Xikong Luan sensed something was amiss, so the evil soldier wielders must have thought of it too. Even though the evil soldier wielders obeyed their respective evil soldiers, the evil soldiers weren't fools and would weigh the pros and cons. If a weapon calamity occurred, it would mean a heavy loss for those evil soldiers, possibly even erasing their own consciousness. Unless they had an irrefutable reason to wage a decisive battle. Lin Yuan's thoughts fluctuated, leading him to two possible reasons. One was that the evil soldiers had acquired some means to boost their confidence, such as recovering other fragments of themselves, giving them the confidence to confront the real divine weapons. The second was that the evil soldiers sensed that if they didn't initiate a decisive battle now, they would never have another opportunity to do so. Upon further contemplation, it was plausible that, in the upcoming times, the 36 divine weapons would undergo some kind of transformation. Once this transformation was complete, there would no longer be any chance for many evil soldiers to survive. Transformation. Lin Yuan's face turned contemplative. 8,000 years ago, the 36 divine weapons were already near 4th rank. After 8,000 years of slumber, continuously harvesting the vital energies and souls of living beings, could these divine weapons possibly take that step and advance to the 4th rank? It could only be this reason that made the evil soldiers disregard everything and wage a decisive battle. Because they knew that if they waited for the 36 divine weapons to advance to the 4th rank, they would have no chance whatsoever. Thus they would exert all their power to start a decisive battle. The purpose of the battle, even if they couldn't defeat the 36 divine weapons, was to halt or even fail their transformation. So be it. Let's go meet those evil soldier wielders then. Lin Yuan spoke slowly. Whether it was the need for more fragments of divine weapons, or the earlier speculations, Lin Yuan found it necessary to meet those evil soldier wielders. A month later, in the far south. This place was a miasm-filled jungle, rarely visited by humans, where ordinary hunters would just glance from afar and dare not approach even slightly. For hundreds, perhaps thousands of years, countless people had died within this jungle. Those miasmas, once inhaled, meant almost certain death. Over the years, this jungle became a forbidden area for nearby hunters. Yet beneath this jungle stood the Xianxia Grand Hall. In the center of the Grand Hall, there were 18 stone thrones. At this moment, all 18 stone thrones were occupied. Their expressions were cold, their auras profound, seeming to connect to some great existence, far surpassing the blood refinement martial saint in every move. These 18 individuals were all wielders of evil soldiers. Each had an evil soldier behind them, and even as mere fragments of divine weapons, their powers were beyond ordinary mortals to gauge. What background does that master of the Defying Divine Society have, for the Defying Divine Society to obey him so submissively? A man wearing a green robe spoke up. Before this master of the Defying Divine Society appeared, the Defying Divine Society was utterly respectful to them as wielders of evil soldiers, as well as to all evil soldiers. But now, everything had changed. The Defying Divine Society even dared to negotiate terms with them. It is said that this master of the Defying Divine Society possesses the power to suppress fragments of divine weapons, even rivaling the power of divine weapons himself. Another evil soldier spoke up. Nonsense. As soon as these words were uttered, several wielders of the evil soldiers displayed a mocking look. Since ancient times, the power of divine weapons had been superior to all creatures, and the fragments of divine weapons were no exception. Human strength. How could it possibly contend with the power of divine weapons? This point was clearer to wielders of evil soldiers than to anyone else. Perhaps the individual behind the leader of the Defying Divine Society also stands with an evil soldier, and is himself a user of an evil soldier? An evil soldier user spoke up. This statement indeed garnered approval from most of the evil soldier users present. Regardless of that, just then the figure seated at the main seat spoke. When we meet the new leader of the Defying Divine Society, if he's just like us, an evil soldier user, then let it be. We can discuss the matter of the decisive battle slowly, as the evil soldier behind him likely won't refuse. If he's not. At this, a hint of cruelty crept into the voice of the figure in the main seat. While evil soldier users are also of the human race, under the influence of the evil soldiers, they gradually begin to see others as mere ants. No problem. Jianghu brother is right. Let's do as brother Jianghu says. The words of the figure in the main seat, Jianghu, were not refused by any evil soldier user present. Even among evil soldier users, there are strengths and weaknesses. The nature of an evil soldier is a fragment of a divine weapon, and the size of this fragment, which occupies a certain portion of the original divine weapon, naturally determines the power of the evil soldier. Thus, there are 5 levels of evil soldier users. An evil soldier with a completeness of 30%. An evil soldier with a completeness of 40%. An evil soldier with a completeness of 50%. An evil soldier with a completeness of 60%. An evil soldier with a completeness of 80%. The higher the completeness, the closer the power of the evil soldier to a genuine divine weapon. And Jianghu's evil soldier commands an astonishing 90% completeness. This evil soldier's true strength is thus extremely close to that of a real divine weapon, which is why in the presence of other evil soldier users, it has an exceptional status. This time, the evil soldier users decided to initiate a decisive battle. Not only because the 36 divine weapons were about to make their final step, but also because Jianghu's evil soldier, with its rare completeness of 90%, ensures them a measure of self-defense, even in a decisive battle against the 36 divine weapons. After all, their purpose in initiating the decisive battle was not to defeat the 36 divine weapons but to interfere with them, preventing them from making their final step. Once the battle begins, their primary focus would naturally be on preserving their own lives. Suddenly, the 18 evil soldier users seated on the 18 stone seats shifted slightly in their expressions. They sensed an aura slowly making its way into the Xianxia Grand Hall from the entrance. Is it the leader of the Defying Divine Society? How bold of him to come here alone. The 18 evil soldier users were slightly startled, a playful look emerging on their faces. A moment later, a young man appeared at the entrance of the Xianxia Grand Hall. Are you the leader of the Defying Divine Society? The 18 weapon wielders remained seated, showing no intention of standing to greet their guest. Buzz! The power of heaven and earth converged. In the vague mix, a huge black hammer emerged from the air, smashing down towards Lin Yuan. An evil soldier user could not restrain themselves and made a move to test Lin Yuan. Too disappointing, Lin Yuan sighed lightly. Under the astonished gazes of the 18 evil soldier users, he merely waved his hand and the black hammer's shadow shattered. Before the evil soldier users could even react, you evil soldier users are quite impolite. Lin Yuan took a step forward, appearing next to the 18 stone seats. He then stepped forward again, and Jianghu, who was seated in the main seat, exuding a serious demeanor with an evil soldier at 90% completeness, was pulled out by an invisible force, tossed aside like trash and smashed onto distant Xianxia rocks. Still sitting. Lin Yuan glanced over the remaining 17 evil soldier users. As soon as his words fell, the 17 evil soldier users on the 17 stone seats were all forced to stand up. During this, some evil soldier users tried to resist, even summoning the power of their evil soldiers, causing bursts of terrifying aura, but it was all suppressed within an inch around them. The normally earth-shaking power of the evil soldiers was now like a docile kitty. All the evil soldier users seated on the stone seats stood up. Seeing this, Lin Yuan then slowly took his seat in the main seat. Chapter 79. Splitting Heaven Axe Xianxia Grand Hall. Silence reigned. All the haughty evil soldier envoys stood up, staring blankly at the young man seated in the place of honor. All right. You may sit down as well. Lin Yuan waved his sleeve. Instantly, the force that had compelled the evil soldier envoys to stand dissipated. The entire Xianxia Grand Hall reverted to normal, and if it hadn't been for the change of the person sitting in the main seat, many an envoy would have thought the preceding events were an illusion. The various evil soldier envoys exchanged glances, cold sweat beading on their foreheads. At this moment, whether to sit, to stand, or to flee, none seemed appropriate. Not sitting. With a smile in the corner of his mouth, Lin Yuan looked towards the envoys. In an instant, it felt as if a great mountain was pressing down upon them. All the envoys felt an immense force bearing down on their shoulders, their faces turning deathly pale and their legs trembling as they took their seats on the stone chairs. That's more like it. A satisfied expression appeared on Lin Yuan's face. The other evil soldier envoys, however, were caught in a maelstrom of emotion. Since Lin Yuan had entered the Xianxia Grand Hall, it had only been the span of a few breaths. But in this short period, he had suppressed all the envoys to the point where they hadn't even been capable of a smidgen of resistance. It wasn't that the envoys hadn't tried to resist. It was that they had resisted to no avail. How could this be possible? Even more incredible to the envoys was the fact that they hadn't felt the slightest hint of a divine weapon's aura from Lin Yuan. Meaning, Lin Yuan wasn't an envoy of the divine weapons. He wasn't an envoy, yet possessed power that surpassed the envoys. Such a scene, defying all logic, made the hearts of the envoys shiver. Who are you exactly? Atop the Xianxia Grand Hall, Jianghu, who had been thrown from the main seat by Lin Yuan, barely managed to climb up, his eyes filled with dread as he looked towards Lin Yuan. That throw had nearly shattered all his bones and internal organs. Had it not been for the protection of the power of his evil soldier, he would be dead beyond dead by now. Did I speak to you? Why are you intervening? Lin Yuan glanced at Jianghu. Boom! A tremendous force descended. Qinghua's face turned scarlet, and with a thud, he knelt on the ground. This pitiful sight sent shivers down the spines of the other envoys. Compared to Jianghu kneeling on the ground, they, the evil soldier envoys, were at least seated on stone chairs. Albeit also compelled, it at least appeared far more dignified. I ask a question, and you answer it. If there's anything else to add, feel free to do so. Lin Yuan casually spoke as he adjusted his sleeve. Next, Lin Yuan paid no heed to the thoughts of these envoys. He asked directly, "Why have you instigated this decisive battle?" Although Lin Yuan had his suspicions, he still wanted to hear what these envoys would say. It's like this. One of the envoys, unable to bear the pressure, spoke out. What a joke. Although up to this point, all 18 of them were alive. But with Lin Yuan's recently displayed overwhelming strength, the envoy had no doubts that Lin Yuan had the power to kill them all completely. In such a situation, none of the envoys would display a stance of defiance unto death. Some of them had already attempted to communicate with their internal evil soldiers, seeking to revive them. Even if they still couldn't defeat Lin Yuan, at least there was hope for a full retreat. But aside from the beginning, when the evil soldiers attempted to release power to oppose Lin Yuan, right now, all the evil soldiers within the envoys seemed to have vanished, completely disregarding the pleas of the envoys. This was the will of the evil soldier lords. The evil soldier lords told us that within 100 years, those 36 divine weapons will take that one step, reaching the domain of the Father God. Therefore, we must exert our full strength, whatever the cost, to prevent this event from happening. Otherwise, there will be no place for us in the heavens or on the earth. The multitude of envoys started speaking one after another, revealing roughly everything they knew. It matched pretty closely with what Lin Yuan had surmised. After 8,000 years of nurturing and slumber, those 36 nation-protecting divine weapons were indeed on the cusp of reaching the 4th rank. This also highlighted the difficulty of advancing from the 3rd to the 4th rank. Those 36 divine weapons were the external manifestations of this realm's fundamental rules. Yet even so, to step into the fourth rank was arduous. What more for ordinary beings? Ancient godly being. Lin Yuan pondered with a contemplative look. Father God, as mentioned by the envoys, referred to the ancient godly being. 10,000 years ago, an ancient godly being offered mountains and rivers, smelted the four seas, and eventually forged 100 divine weapons. This was the origin of all the current divine weapons. Therefore, whether it's the complete divine weapons or the fragmented evil soldiers, they all refer to that ancient godly being from 10,000 years ago as Father God. For decades, Lin Yuan had been trying to uncover more information about this ancient godly being and had found very little. Even when forcibly seizing information from an evil soldier, due to their fragmented essence, he could only obtain a few glimpses from after 10,000 years. As for the memories related to that ancient godly being from before 10,000 years, and how the divine weapons were forged, it all remained exceedingly vague. The evil soldiers only knew Father God was great, but the more specific, detailed memories were absent. Lin Yuan was quite curious about that ancient godly being. In his view, that ancient godly being was at least a powerhouse at the fourth rank, or even someone who had advanced far within that tier. Yet how could such a formidable being leave not a trace of information, even if they couldn't live for 10,000 years? Gathering his thoughts, Lin Yuan's gaze once again fell upon the envoys. I need your help with something. Lin Yuan spoke in a gentle tone, smiling as he said so. This speech left all the evil soldier wielders present scratching their heads. With the strength that Lin Yuan had revealed so far, it wasn't a stretch to say that he could match a real divine weapon, so what could possibly require their help? Please go ahead, sir. The evil soldier wielder who first answered Lin Yuan's questions spoke cautiously. I would like to borrow a look at the evil soldiers within your bodies. Lin Yuan said calmly, his gaze steady. With these words, a hush fell over the crowd once again. Then, audacious! How dare you! Mortal, you're courting death. Terrible fluctuations of spiritual force burst forth from each of the evil soldier wielders. One by one, the phantom images of evil soldiers emerged, especially the Jianghu, kneeling in the grand hall, within whom a nearly complete giant axe phantom loomed. The divine weapon splitting heaven axe. Lin Yuan's gaze lingered on the phantom of this giant axe for a moment. During the great battle of 100 divine weapons 8,000 years ago, this splitting heaven axe was second only to those 36 most powerful divine weapons. Even in defeat, it had retained most of its original body. Initially, these evil soldiers intended to avoid Lin Yuan's sharp edge after sensing his strength, which explained why none of them had responded despite the evil soldier wielders calling out to them. But who could have imagined that Lin Yuan would be so audacious as to want to borrow a look at them? Not bad at all. Lin Yuan's gaze turned slightly fervent. He had specifically come here not just to confirm his suspicions. His main objective was to collect more complete evil soldiers. If Lin Yuan planned to ascend to fourth rank by the essence of the rules, he had to comprehend a great number of evil soldiers, perhaps even real divine weapons. Thus, the more powerful these evil soldiers were, the better. Outside the Xianxia Grand Hall, Xikong Luan looked worried, pacing back and forth. The Lord has been impulsive again, Xikong Luan fretted. After he and Lin Yuan arrived at the location as per the evil soldier wielder's guidance, Xikong Luan planned to enter the hall with Lin Yuan. After all, compared to Lin Yuan, he, Xikong Luan, had plenty of experience communicating with those evil soldier wielders. Knowing what the evil soldier wielders wanted, even if negotiations broke down, he and Lin Yuan still had a chance to leave unscathed. At worst, they would pay a price. But Lin Yuan had asked him to wait outside and went in alone. This only made Xikong Luan more anxious. He was aware of Lin Yuan's strength, strong enough to easily suppress evil soldiers. But the evil soldier wielders inside the Xianxia Grand Hall, which one of them was easy to deal with? Those gathered here, their evil soldiers had an integrity of over 50%, far surpassing that piece of the Holy Heart Realm fragment from before. There was even an evil soldier with 90% integrity, extremely close to a divine weapon. With such power, yet Lin Yuan had walked in so boldly. What if negotiations went south? It would surely lead to a great loss. Xikong Luan admitted Lin Yuan's abilities but didn't believe that Lin Yuan would be able to gain any advantage in front of so many powerful evil soldier wielders. There shouldn't have been a fight. Xikong Luan let out a slight sigh of relief. Given Lin Yuan's methods and the strength of the evil soldier wielders, if a real battle had ensued, it would have been earth-shattering, not this quiet. This was a small comfort to Xikong Luan. But only a small one. Because Lin Yuan had yet to come out. Not coming out. It meant there was still uncertainty. A great battle could still occur. As Xikong Luan anxiously waited, a figure slowly emerged from the entrance. Sir. Xikong Luan was overjoyed. Thankfully, the worst hadn't happened. Lin Yuan nodded slightly, a smile on his face indicating his good mood. Take care of the people coming out behind me. After Lin Yuan finished speaking, he departed straight away. Take care of what? Xikong Luan was somewhat confused. What people? He remembered that Lin Yuan had gone in alone. There were no others in the entire Xianxia Grand Hall besides Lin Yuan and those powerful evil soldier wielders. Just as Xikong Luan was puzzled, the evil soldier wielders, led by Jianghu, stepped out from the entrance, their faces pale and their bodies trembling. Having the evil soldiers forcibly extracted was tantamount to extracting their bone marrow and muscles. If it weren't for Lin Yuan thinking that the souls and spirits of the evil soldier wielders were innately strong and might be useful later, they wouldn't have survived. You! Seeing these evil soldier wielders, Xikong Luan put together their demeanor and realized that the ones Lin Yuan wanted him to take care of were these evil soldier wielders. This? Xikong Luan swallowed hard. With his intelligence, he, of course, understood that if Lin Yuan asked him to take care of them, it meant these evil soldier wielders had already submitted. Otherwise, even if he wanted to, they would not have allowed him to do so. But this? Xikong Luan felt a profound shock. He had just been worried about Lin Yuan's safety, concerned about Lin Yuan being at a disadvantage against the evil soldier wielders. And now, seeing the ashen-faced 18 evil soldier wielders, Xikong Luan looked up at the departing figure of Lin Yuan like one looks up to a god. Chapter 80. Let's go. Let's go worship the divine weapon. The essence of the rules contained in the evil soldier like the splitting heaven axe allowed Lin Yuan to advance further toward the 4th rank. To continue increasing the strength of the defying divine society, Lin Yuan bestowed the divine weapon fragments he had previously obtained. He granted them all. They were used to nurture new divine weapon masters. These divine weapon fragments, which were completely comprehended by Lin Yuan, had no further significance if kept by his side. Moreover, the bestowed divine weapon fragments were also refined and completely obeyed Lin Yuan's commands. The divine weapon masters cultivated with these evil soldiers naturally would not be unruly but were completely loyal to Lin Yuan's command. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 5 years had gone by. The capital of the Greater Yan Kingdom. 100 Flowers Hall. This place was once the palace where the Empress Dowager of Greater Yan stayed as a concubine. Although as the Empress Dowager, she should have moved to a higher standard palace, Wang Shangfeng did not do so. She had lived in the 100 Flowers Hall for over 10 years and had grown accustomed to it. On this day, Lin Yuan came to visit his mother. Since his ascension, Lin Yuan mostly focused on cultivation, visiting only once every 6 months or even a year. Yuan, how do you feel about those concubines I selected for you last time? Wang Shangfeng, though over 90 years old, looked only 45, her complexion rosy and her spirit very good. In this world system of cultivation, the blood refinement martial saint, though comparable to the pinnacle of the 2nd layer, was of no use in terms of extending lifespan, even for a martial saint who could at most live just over 100 years. Lin Yuan speculated that this was also influenced by the divine weapons. After all, the longer one lived, the more likely one could research a level surpassing that of martial saint. Most of the 36 divine weapons were always dormant, naturally not allowing such control-exceeding incidents to occur. Thus, their lifespans were directly limited. Even powerful blood refinement martial saints reaching this stage would mostly be 70 or 80 years old, with weakening vitality and nearing the end of their lifespan. Where would they have the energy to research the realm beyond martial saint? Wang Shangfeng was not a martial saint, and at her age, was still lively, naturally owing to the marrow cleansing performed on her secretly by Lin Yuan. For Wang Shangfeng, the marrow cleansing performed with Lin Yuan's current power was akin to an immortal pill. According to Wang Shangfeng's current health, living to 200 years old was not a problem. It's okay, Lin Yuan replied nonchalantly. Ascending the throne for 50 or 60 years, Lin Yuan had not sired any children. Mainly because there was no need, Lin Yuan was not the retired Emperor Lu Shi. An emperor needs heirs primarily to determine the crown prince and confirm the successor to the dynasty. But Lin Yuan did not need these. With his lifespan, even if he had children, it would definitely be the crown prince who would pass away first. Remaining in this world for at least 160 years was enough to outlive any blood refinement martial saint. Even if he really needed to leave descendants, he would consider it only in the last 20 or 30 years of his extended stay. Upon hearing Lin Yuan's response, the Empress Dowager Wang Shangfeng immediately knew her son was just placating her. But now, Wang Shangfeng had no way to deal with Lin Yuan. Under Lin Yuan's rule, the Greater Yan dynasty was now almost comparable to the strongest few nations among the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. And Lin Yuan's prestige also surpassed that of previous emperors, becoming the most accomplished emperor since the founding of the Greater Yan dynasty. By the way, your father has not been feeling well recently, Yuan. You should find time to visit him, Wang Shangfeng said softly as if thinking of something. All right, Lin Yuan nodded and replied. Leaving the 100 Flowers Hall, he was greeted by a member of the royal family who came to see him. Your Majesty, our Greater Yan dynasty has not produced any weapon masters for over a decade. This member of the royal family was also one of Lin Yuan's elders, now aged and frail, reminding Lin Yuan. For the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, the most important task was cultivating weapon masters. Everything else was secondary. Only with a weapon master could they suppress the nation's foundation. And the last generation weapon master, Lin Yuan's elder sister, had passed away over a decade ago. Since she had never revived a divine weapon or even stimulated one, she lived longer compared to other weapon masters. Weapon masters. In front of Lin Yuan's eyes appeared the image, from 50 or 60 years ago, of his elder sister running up to him to see him one last time, her eyes reddening with tears. After becoming a divine weapon master, one was bound to the divine weapon, and unless Lin Yuan's power overwhelmingly surpassed, it was difficult to sever the bond between them. This matter is not urgent, Lin Yuan said indifferently. Yes. The royal descendant hesitated to speak and then stopped, finally saying nothing. After dismissing this royal descendant, Lin Yuan soon met the retired Emperor Lu Shi. Compared to Wang Shangfeng, Lu Shi's condition was much worse. His hair and beard were all white, skin wrinkled. That was the case because Lin Yuan had never performed the marrow cleansing on Lu Shi. As a former emperor of the Greater Yan dynasty, Lu Shi had performed multiple rituals with the nation-protecting divine weapons. The marks of the divine weapons had long been planted on him. Should Lin Yuan use his own power to perform marrow cleansing for Lu Shi, it was highly likely to alert that nation-protecting divine weapon of the Greater Yan dynasty. Father Emperor. Lin Yuan and the retired Emperor Lu Shi talked for a long time. Mainly, it was Lu Shi speaking and Lin Yuan listening. Lu Shi also had heard about the current state of the Greater Yan dynasty. His own son had become the most accomplished sage monarch in the history of the dynasty. Lu Shi was naturally joyful from the bottom of his heart. Yuan, I'm afraid I must depart. In this lifetime the thing I, Lu Shi, regret the least, is handing over Greater Yan to you. Lu Shi spoke for a while, then felt spiritless and closed his eyes to sleep. It's about time. Upon leaving the palace where retired Emperor Lu Shi resided, Lin Yuan looked up towards the due north. There lay the ancestral grounds of the divine weapons of the Greater Yan dynasty. 5 or 6 years ago, Lin Yuan had already reached the edge of 4th rank, not weaker than the divine weapons. Now, having absorbed the foundational laws from many evil soldiers like the Splitting Heaven Axe, his strength had increased once more. The next day, in the court, the civil and military officials of the Greater Yan dynasty were excited. Because this morning, Lin Yuan would participate, discussing state affairs with the ministers. For the ministers, this was undoubtedly thrilling. After all, this generation's emperor of the Greater Yan possessed abilities esteemed as the best among his predecessors, his only fault being his reluctance to appear in public. Many new ministers in the court had never seen the emperor in person. The countless citizens of the Greater Yan dynasty regarded Lin Yuan as the most respected figure in their hearts. If it weren't for Lin Yuan, how could the dynasty have achieved such great governance today? Upon the dragon throne, Lin Yuan sat casually. The ministers below one by one stood out, presenting their reports on state affairs. As the court meeting was about to end, the Minister of Rights finally stepped forward. Your Majesty has been on the throne for over 50 years. According to ancestral customs, you should proceed to the divine weapon ancestral grounds for the ritual. the Minister of Rights spoke as per the text, harboring no expectation of a direct response. For over 50 years, since Lin Yuan's accession to the throne, there had been 3 ministers of rights. All 3 ministers of rights had always brought up the matter of urging the emperor to proceed to the divine weapon ancestral grounds for the ritual at each morning court meeting. But the emperor had never replied, and the 3 ministers of rights did not dare to insist, only taking the chance to mention it whenever possible. And this had become a habit for all 3 ministers of rights. Or perhaps a hope. Yet this time when the current minister of rights had finished speaking, Lin Yuan, seated on the dragon throne, slightly nodded and stood up to say, "Indeed, it's time to go to the ancestral grounds for the ritual." The current minister of rights, hearing this, immediately was stunned. Then his eyes began to moisten. After more than 50 years, the emperor was finally not ill anymore but was planning to go to the ancestral grounds for the ritual. Chapter 81. Isolating Heaven and Earth Divine Weapon Ancestral Grounds. These are places dedicated to the worship of nation-protecting divine weapons. In the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, there are 36 nation-protecting divine weapons, and naturally, 36 divine weapon ancestral grounds exist. For the royal families of the 36 countries, worshipping divine weapons is even more important than honoring ancestors or past emperors. It was only because Lin Yuan made an independent decision in the Greater Yan Dynasty Tiangang, withstanding pressure from the court, that he managed to delay the worship of divine weapons for 50 to 60 years. Even so, the number of living sacrifices sent to the divine weapon ancestral grounds each year hadn't reduced in the slightest. Lin Yuan turned a blind eye to this. With matters like the succession of the throne, divine weapons might not pay attention. However, if there was even a slight shortfall in the living sacrifices, it would surely attract the notice of the divine weapons. At that time, the divine weapon would awaken and proactively seek out sacrifices. The consequences of this would be difficult for the Greater Yan Dynasty to bear. After all, when a divine weapon awakens on its own, the number of sacrifices it requires is much greater than when it slumbers. Therefore, before accumulating enough strength to suppress the divine weapon, maintaining the status quo to gain more time to grow stronger is the correct choice. At least Lin Yuan could be in control and choose when to take action. Like now. Lin Yuan thought now was a good opportunity to make a move. Taking the opportunity of the worship ceremony, he would lure out the divine weapon and strike when it fed. Divine weapon. After Lin Yuan agreed to the worship of the divine weapon, the Minister of Rights and many other ministers hurriedly started preparing the various rituals needed for the ceremony. Lin Yuan, on the other hand, returned to Chengtian Hall, pondering the matter of divine weapons. Having decided to take action against the divine weapon, Lin Yuan was, of course, fully prepared. After studying the memories of numerous evil soldiers, Lin Yuan gained a deep understanding of the 36 divine weapons. In terms of combat power alone, Lin Yuan was confident he was not inferior to any divine weapon. What Lin Yuan needed to be wary of was the divine weapon's final trump card. Merging with heaven and earth. Whether it's a divine weapon or an evil soldier, at its core, it is the external manifestation of the essence of the rules of heaven and earth. Since it is an external manifestation, in times of need, it can naturally merge back into it. The essence of evil soldiers is shattered, no longer intact, so they cannot return to heaven and earth. But divine weapons are different. If a divine weapon wishes, it can surely merge into heaven and earth. In such a state, even if Lin Yuan were 100 or 1,000 times stronger, unless he could destroy heaven and earth, he could do nothing about it. Of course, if it weren't a last resort, with no other options, divine weapons would not choose to return to heaven and earth. Because by doing so, the divine weapon's own consciousness would be washed away by the consciousness of heaven and earth. Simply put, it would be formatted. Centuries later, even if it emerged from heaven and earth again, that divine weapon would no longer be the original divine weapon. Because its inner consciousness would have changed. Nevertheless, having chosen to make a move against the divine weapon, Lin Yuan certainly wouldn't just watch it return to heaven and earth. One of his main purposes in taking action was to suppress the divine weapon in order to comprehend the essential rules it contained. Over decades, the essence of rules within the fragments of many evil soldiers provided Lin Yuan with a tremendous help. This was only from evil soldiers, that is, fragments of divine weapons. What if it were a complete divine weapon, with its full essence of rules? How much help could it bring to Lin Yuan? At the very least, it could elevate him to the 4th rank. Not just an ordinary 4th rank, but a fourth rank founded on the essence of rules. Since divine weapons can merge into heaven and earth, then I will just cut off heaven and earth completely. Lin Yuan's eyes were calm. In his 80 years in this realm, with against heaven's understanding, Lin Yuan had contemplated many fragments of evil soldiers and developed a secret technique to isolate from heaven and earth. Using 81 pieces of evil soldiers as the core, he could completely seal off a certain area. That is, cutting it off from heaven and earth. However, such sealing had its limits. Heaven and earth have the ability to repair themselves, and with Lin Yuan's methods, he could seal it for at most an hour. That is, cut off from heaven and earth for an hour. The matter of the Flame Emperor going to the ancestral grounds to worship the divine weapons became a top priority in the court. Since it was a worship ceremony, a large number of sacrifices would be prepared. The sacrifices for worshipping divine weapons are, of course, living people, and particularly cultivators with abundant blood and energy. Since Lin Yuan's ascension to the throne, although he hadn't reduced the number of sacrifices, he tried as much as possible to select those sentenced to death or life imprisonment. If there still weren't enough, he would recruit from the populace as much as possible. Those who volunteered to be sacrifices would have their parents, children and so on taken care of by the state. The elders would be supported by greater yen in their old age, and their descendants would have priority in education, entering politics or enlisting in the army. This policy once sparked controversy in the court. Many ministers thought it unnecessary, insisting that the honor of sacrificing for the divine weapons should be reserved for the peasants. After all, implementing such a policy would definitely put a strain on the state treasury. Yet, under Lin Yuan's firm stance, the policy was still enforced. The process of offering sacrifices to the divine weapon was very cumbersome. Numerous ministers had been busy for most of the day before they began the final offering. As the emperor, Lin Yuan walked at the forefront, heading toward the center of the underground palace in the ancestral grounds. Several hours later, Lin Yuan's gaze was deep as he looked towards the center of the altar. In his perception, a vast and mountainous aura was almost bursting forth. This aura was ferocious and majestic, sharp and overbearing, surpassing any evil soldier Lin Yuan had ever encountered. Even the splitting heaven axe, which was 90% intact, paled in comparison to this aura. For 8,000 years, those evil soldiers had made no progress. However, the 36 nation-protecting divine weapons continuously devoured the life force, blood, and souls of living beings, slowly improving, and over 8,000 years, dripping water had worn through stone, their strength naturally surpassing that of the past. Not to mention, these 36 nation-protecting divine weapons were strongly fought for in the great battle of 100 divine weapons 8,000 years ago, and they were the strongest 36 out of those 100. The Sun and Moon Spear. A trace of a strange color flashed across Lin Yuan's face. This nation-protecting divine weapon of the Greater Yen dynasty, the Sun and Moon Spear, was one of the divine weapons most adept at offensive powers among the 36. In that battle of divine weapons, the Sun and Moon Spear had pierced through at least 7 or 8 other divine weapons, its fierce might nothing short of awe-inspiring. All right. You all may leave now. I have something to say to the divine weapon. Lin Yuan sensed that the Sun and Moon Spear was about to appear, devouring the offerings. He immediately turned back to look at the various ministers and the imperial lineage. Yes. Then we shall depart first. Everyone was already somewhat breathless, after all, as the aura of the Sun and Moon Spear gradually moved. Facing such an aura as vast as heaven and earth, ordinary people found it difficult to endure. And Lin Yuan's reason was very sufficient. The Greater Yen imperial family was the spokesperson chosen by the divine weapons. And as the emperor, the highest in the royal family's status, being alone with the divine weapon was only natural. Soon, apart from Lin Yuan, everyone respectfully departed. For a moment, the vast and enormous altar was left with only Lin Yuan and the living sacrifices kneeling in the distance. The living sacrifices for this offering were all death row inmates from various places. To ensure the smooth progress of the offering, these inmates were already unconscious. Lin Yuan stood in place, quietly waiting for the divine weapon to appear. At this time, Lin Yuan's aura was contained. Even the divine weapon could not detect any anomaly. Otherwise, with the strength of Lin Yuan's physical blood, the Sun and Moon Spear would have gone crazy by now. Why would it dawdle as it was doing now? Rumble. Under Lin Yuan's watchful eyes, 100 Zhonglong divine dragon with the sun and moon revolving around it slowly flew out. A dragon. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. It wasn't a dragon. The so-called divine dragon was nothing but a phantom image transformed by the aura of the divine weapon. Lin Yuan saw at the core of the divine dragon phantom a hazy long spear undulating. The divine weapon, the sun and moon spear. Lin Yuan's expression became slightly solemn. This was not the first time he had seen a divine weapon. In perusing those evil soldier memories, he had seen many divine weapons. He had even seen numerous scenes of the sun and moon spear making its thrust. But scenes were just scenes after all. In comparison to the actual sun and moon spear, it was like the light of a firefly vying with the bright moon. Hoo! The sun and moon spear trembled lightly. The 100-jong-long divine dragon phantom opened its huge mouth and slightly sucked in the direction of the sacrifices. Suddenly, a massive amount of life force, vitality, and souls were devoured into the dragon's mouth. These offerings are not bad. The sun and moon spear emitted a vast spiritual fluctuation, clearly somewhat satisfied. Are you the new emperor? The sun and moon spear seemed to sense something, emitting another spiritual fluctuation. Indeed, Lin Yuan nodded. In that case, the body of the sun and moon spear shook. An indescribable aura descended. Each emperor, during the offering to the divine weapons, would be branded with a divine weapon mark. It was both a deterrent and a restriction. Lin Yuan had to this day not undergone the marrow cleansing for the retired emperor, precisely because he was wary of this divine weapon brand. Wait a moment, Lin Yuan immediately spoke up. As Lin Yuan pronounced the word wait, he lifted his right foot and took a step forward. By the time Lin Yuan finished saying wait, his right foot landed, and with the altar as the center, the surrounding heaven and earth had already been isolated. Chapter 82 The Ancient Godly Being Cutting Off Heaven and Earth. For Lin Yuan, it was not only about preventing the divine weapon from returning to the world. More importantly, it was to block the fluctuations of qi generated during his fight with the divine weapon. In the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, each capital had a divine weapon in command. All 36 divine weapons emerged from that great war 8,000 years ago. They jointly divided the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. These 36 divine weapons, remaining so peacefully, must have made some secret agreements. Like watching over each other, perhaps? If the other 35 divine weapons sensed that Lin Yuan was suppressing the sun and moon spear, he might face the siege of all 36 divine weapons. Even without any agreement to watch over each other, upon seeing Lin Yuan, such a powerful member of the human race, whether it was to share the spoils or to eliminate future troubles, the other 35 divine weapons would also take action. Even if Lin Yuan managed to escape the encirclement, after the 35 divine weapons witnessed Lin Yuan's strength, they would surely develop a deep sense of wariness and were likely to accelerate harvesting lives to advance to the 4th rank level sooner. After all, according to the intentions of other evil soldiers, the 36 divine weapons were already very close to the 4th rank. Waiting for what? The sun and moon spear didn't notice the change in heaven and earth. It had just awakened from its slumber, so its perception was somewhat dulled. Recently, there was an evil soldier named Splitting Heaven Axe. Lin Yuan casually picked a topic to divert the sun and moon spear's attention. That one. The sun and moon spear was slightly taken aback, its tone laced with disdain. 8,000 years ago, the Splitting Heaven Axe was not its match, let alone now. If the sun and moon spear was about to discuss matters, when it saw Lin Yuan raise his right hand and slowly clench it towards the spear. A terrifying pressure filled every inch of the air. What the sun and moon spear had morphed into, the divine dragon, directly disintegrated. Lin Yuan's figure moved nearly 1,000 meters in an instant, appearing in front of the sun and moon spear, and then his outstretched right hand grasped the body of the spear. How dare you! The sun and moon spear instinctively raged. For so many years, even during that gruesome battle 8,000 years ago, no divine weapon had dared to come so close to it, let alone be held. Apart from the Father God who had forged it, no other living being had ever done this. The formidable aura of the divine weapon exploded suddenly, sharp to the extreme, a force almost tearing the air, thrusting towards Lin Yuan. Too late. Lin Yuan shook his head slightly. A smile appeared on his face, as if he hadn't yet come close to or grasped the sun and moon spear. With the power of a divine weapon, it could indeed struggle with him for a while. But now, he had already locked down the true body of the sun and moon spear. No matter how it thrashed, it was futile. And this was Lin Yuan's ultimate scheme. If he had acted directly against the sun and moon spear, aside from whether he could handle it, he probably wouldn't even know where its true body was. Moreover, once he revealed his strength and raised the sun and moon spear's vigilance, it would become even more difficult. Only by taking advantage of the ritual did he make the sun and moon spear let down its guard. Then, as a spokesperson, Lin Yuan was able to get close to the sun and moon spear. In this way he could, like now, instantly seize the crux of the divine weapon's life. Indeed, about to approach the fourth rank. Feeling the sun and moon spears struggle in his hand, Lin Yuan grew more solemn. At that moment, he seemed to be holding a 2-meter-long lance, but it felt as though he was pressing down on a flood dragon that roamed the clouds and rain. How is this possible? How is this possible? Who exactly are you to possess such strength? The sun and moon spear was utterly panic-stricken. After several counterattacks, all suppressed by Lin Yuan, the sun and moon spear quickly realized its predicament. This was trouble. Real trouble. With its true body suppressed, no matter how great its divine skills and capabilities were, a rebound seemed very difficult. Taiji. In Lin Yuan's eyes, a faint black and white vortex appeared. In just a moment, the sun and moon spear felt the pressure it was under skyrocket by several or even dozens of times. The two extreme powers of Tai Yin and Tai Yang, flowing along the body of the spear, continuously invaded its consciousness. You forced my hand. The spiritual fluctuations of the sun and moon spear exploded. The body of the spear began to become ethereal, clearly intending to return to the world. Although this method would cause its consciousness to vanish, it was better than falling into Lin Yuan's hands. Besides, faced with the suppression from Lin Yuan's Taiji power, faced with that perfectly balanced extreme force, the sun and moon spear would barely last even without returning to the world. Rather than that, it was better to return to the world. Hundreds of years later, I will make your descendants from the greater Yan dynasty endure the torment of the sun and moon. The sun and moon spear inwardly swore, embedding this resolve deep within its body. That way, even if the sun and moon spear reappeared in the world in the future, giving birth to a new consciousness, it would hold a strong aversion to the descendants of the greater Yan dynasty. However, just when the sun and moon spear was halfway through the fusion process, the originally illusory spear shaft began to solidify once more. What? The sun and moon spear was shocked. Its process of merging with heaven and earth had actually been interrupted. You actually separated heaven and earth? The spirit of the sun and moon spear felt heavy. Separating heaven and earth. It sounds simple. But to achieve it is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Boom boom boom. Accompanied by the further crushing of the Taiji grinding disc, the consciousness of the sun and moon spear began to gradually fall into darkness. A great success. Lin Yuan exhaled lightly. At this point, the time limit for separating heaven and earth for an hour was drawing very near. Thankfully, there had been no accidents. A complete divine weapon. Lin Yuan looked at the sun and moon spear before him, now suppressed to the size of a palm. Even so, the sun and moon spear still emitted a faint oppressive force, which was the essence of heaven and earth's rules. Take. With a slight thought from Lin Yuan, the fragments of the evil soldier previously arranged around the ancestral grounds returned to his side. With the disappearance of the evil soldier, the separation from heaven and earth was restored. However, at this moment the great battle had ended, so naturally, there was no problem. After suppressing the sun and moon spear, Lin Yuan immediately returned to his underground palace. This place was built in a secluded corner of the greater Yan dynasty, difficult for outsiders to detect. Sun and moon spear. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged, gazing at the palm-sized spear before him, momentarily captivated. To behold a complete divine weapon, Lin Yuan's first impression was perfection, as if it encompassed the sun, moon and stars, all external things of heaven and earth. Every structure and every part fitting together flawlessly. Several days later, Xikong Luan came to the underground palace. He held a wooden box in his hand, inside which lay a fragment of a weapon. It was indeed an evil soldier. Lin Yuan had long ago ordered the Defying Divine Society to collect various evil soldiers. The evil soldier in the wooden box, though not having birthed a consciousness, was indeed a fragment of a divine weapon and met Lin Yuan's requirements. However, as Xikong Luan approached the palace, and saw Lin Yuan seated in the center of the palace, with the floating spear before him, he was momentarily stunned. That spear, which evil soldier is it? Xikong Luan had a look of puzzlement. Among the many evil soldiers he had collected for Lin Yuan, there were very few that were spears. Furthermore, Xikong Luan noticed that the spear before Lin Yuan was extraordinarily complete, seeming. Xikong Lun's gaze gradually turned vacant, his heart stirring with shock and disbelief. Because he felt with extreme caution that the spear didn't seem to be an evil soldier. Instead, it was a divine weapon. A complete divine weapon. But how could that be? Divine weapons in this world are predestined. 36 divine weapons oversee the world below. How could there suddenly be an additional divine weapon? Is it the sun and moon spear, the one from the greater Yan dynasty? Xikong Luan trembled inwardly. A divine weapon of great stature, now submissive before Lin Yuan. This was simply. Although Xikong Luan knew that Lin Yuan had once single-handedly suppressed multiple evil soldier wielders. But evil soldiers are evil soldiers. What are they compared to a true divine weapon? My lord! Xikong Lun's legs went weak, suddenly not daring to approach any further. In the center of the palace, Lin Yuan sat cross-legged. After thoroughly suppressing the sun and moon spear, Lin Yuan attempted to browse through its memories. Boom boom boom. A vast spiritual force began to invade. The memories of the sun and moon spear spanning 10,000 years gradually unfolded before Lin Yuan. Compared to the other evil soldiers, the sun and moon spear, as a complete divine weapon, held unbroken memories. Lin Yuan's expression was solemn, and it didn't take him long to browse through the memories from 10,000 years ago. The memories from 10,000 years prior were something Lin Yuan had never encountered, for the physical forms of the other evil soldiers had shattered, having lost this segment of memory long ago. Boom. With the memories of the sun and moon spear, Lin Yuan seemed to arrive at a time 10,000 years before. It was a vast world, and Lin Yuan looked around. He quickly saw an enormous figure. Imposing and radiant with endless light, it was an ancient godly being. Chapter 83. The sun and the moon. Thousands of years before, there was no concept of a nation. At that time, the human race lived in tribal forms, consuming raw flesh and blood, dwelling in all corners of the world. In that incredibly distant ancient times, there appeared an ancient godly being. They walked among the worlds, observing all things. Ultimately, they sacrificed mountains and rivers, merging and refining the 4 seas. Forcefully, in between heaven and earth, they forged 100 weapons of war. These 100 weapons were a manifestation of the intrinsic laws of the universe, wrested by that ancient godly being from the world itself. Without that ancient godly being, the 100 weapons could not possibly have broken free from the control of the universe and become separate entities. And these 100 weapons were what later became known as the ultimate divine weapons. You be the eldest, you be the second, you be the third. The face of the ancient godly being was blurred as they looked at the 100 weapons floating between heaven and earth, emitting vast spiritual fluctuations. At that moment, Lin Yuan's point of view originated from a long spear. The sun and moon spear. The sun and moon spear was the 18th weapon that the ancient godly being had forged. So, it was also called Old 18. Who knows how much time passed? That ancient godly being once again came before the 100 divine weapons. I am leaving. From now on, you will be the only ones left in this world. After saying those words, the ancient godly being vanished. Years flew by like a shuttle afterward. The ancient godly being never appeared again. And the spiritual wisdom of the 100 divine weapons became increasingly perfected. Until one day, they discovered that the chi and spirit of the human race were of great use to their growth. Therefore they began harvesting humans. However, later, the leading tower-shaped divine weapon realized that at the rate the 100 divine weapons were consuming the human race, it wouldn't take many years before the humans on this land would become extinct, and afterwards, all divine weapons would have no humans to consume, causing their growth to revert to an exceedingly slow phase. So, this tower-shaped divine weapon began to curb the other divine weapons. This action won the approval of some divine weapons and the opposition of others. In the end, the 100 divine weapons still reached an agreement to pen all the humans within a certain area, and select a portion of them to consume at regular intervals. This was the rudimentary form of what would later become the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. Another 1,000 or 2,000 years passed. Some divine weapons found that certain divine weapons were consuming more humans than the rest. This uneven distribution led to a great battle among the 100 divine weapons. In that battle, 64 divine weapons were shattered. The most powerful 36 divine weapons enjoyed all the humans. Within the underground palace, Lin Yuan slowly opened his eyes. Having browsed the memories of the Sun and Moon Spear, Lin Yuan had gained a certain understanding of that ancient godly being. It was clear. The strength of the ancient godly being was at least 4th rank to start, and perhaps even at the peak of 4th rank. As for why they ventured over mountains and rivers, roamed the world, and contested with heaven and earth to forge those 100 divine weapons, Lin Yuan speculated that they too were after the intrinsic laws of this world. In forging the 100 divine weapons, the ancient godly being was also comprehending the myriad laws within the weapons. Although the ancient godly being's comprehension certainly couldn't compare to Lin Yuan's, time was on their side. The ancient times that began 10,000 years ago lasted for at least several thousand years. Over such a prolonged period, combined with the ancient godly being's position as the forger of the weapons, they surely benefited tremendously. True divine weapons indeed. With thoughts tumbling, Lin Yuan's gaze once again fell upon the Sun and Moon Spear. Even though the Sun and Moon Spear was currently suppressed by Lin Yuan, with its consciousness in a deep slumber, its innate resistance alone was enough to shatter hundreds or thousands of blood-refining martial saints. Of course, such resistance was insignificant for Lin Yuan. The Sun and the Moon. Lin Yuan reached out, gently touching the spear, feeling its textures and laws, as countless sparks of inspiration burst forth in his mind. Your comprehending nature is defying, observing and touching the complete intrinsic laws of this world, and you have touched upon the rules of the Sun and the Moon. Your comprehending nature is defying, observing and touching the complete intrinsic laws of this world, and you have touched upon the rules of the Sun and the Moon. Your comprehending nature is defying, observing and touching the complete intrinsic laws of this world, and you have touched upon the rules of the Sun and the Moon. In just a brief moment, Lin Yuan felt the path ahead became much clearer. Worthy of being a divine weapon. Lin Yuan couldn't help but express his admiration. Compared to those damaged evil soldiers, the help from the divine weapon was akin to a qualitative change. Especially the essence of the Sun and Moon contained within the Sun and Moon Spear matched perfectly with Lin Yuan's Taiji Dao. The Sun and the Moon were parts of Tai Yin and Tai Yang. Understanding the essence of the Sun and the Moon also had a significant effect on supplementing the Taiji Dao. It's a pity. There is only one divine weapon. Lin Yuan looked at the Sun and Moon Spear, but his mind was on the other 35 divine weapons. How wonderful it would be if all the divine weapons were laid out before him for enlightenment. But Lin Yuan also knew that for now, that was just wishful thinking. As for imitating the method used to suppress the Sun and Moon Spear and continuing to suppress other divine weapons, it was nearly impossible. The 36 divine weapons were mutually responsive to each other. Lin Yuan had isolated heaven and earth to suppress the Sun and Moon Spear, indeed avoiding detection by the other divine weapons. But once the aura of the Sun and Moon Spear completely disappeared and the other divine weapons could no longer sense its presence over a long period, they would certainly become vigilant. If Lin Yuan continued to act, it'd be bad enough to come up empty-handed, but there was a good chance he would fall into the trap set by the other 35 divine weapons. Beware not to underestimate the spiritual wisdom of a divine weapon. With a growth of 10,000 years, their intelligence may not be on par with that of the main world's smartest brains, but it's infinitely stronger than that of ordinary people. But one divine weapon is enough. The essence of the laws it contains is enough to push me to the 4th rank. Lin Yuan felt very satisfied. Being able to successfully suppress the Sun and Moon Spear had met his expectations. After pondering for a while, Lin Yuan's thoughts stirred, and he put away the Sun and Moon Spear, his gaze glancing towards the outside of the palace. At the moment, Xikong Luan was still waiting respectfully outside. Without an order from Lin Yuan, he dared not step into the grand hall. "Come in," Lin Yuan said aloud. His voice was not loud, yet it rang clearly in Xikong Luan's ears. "Yes." Xikong Luan took a deep breath and walked into the palace. "My lord, this is an evil soldier. Following your previous instructions, to collect as many evil soldiers as possible." Xikong Luan held out the wooden box in his hand with increased reverence. "I understand." Lin Yuan nodded slightly. Now that he had a divine weapon in hand, he naturally looked down on mere evil soldiers. But even the smallest mosquito was still meat. While the rule essence contained in the evil soldiers was fragmented, it was still somewhat useful to Lin Yuan. "Then I shall take my leave." Xikong Luan left the wooden box behind, ready to retreat respectfully. "After all these years, you must know who I am, right?" Lin Yuan suddenly spoke. It had been decades since he subjugated Xikong Luan, but Lin Yuan had never revealed his identity to him. Upon hearing this, Xikong Lun's heart jolted. If previously he had only suspected in his heart, then just now, upon seeing Lin Yuan handling the Sun and Moon Spear, originally one of the Greater Yan Dynasty's nation-protecting divine weapons, Xikong Luan was almost 90% certain. He confirmed that his lord was indeed the emperor of the Greater Yan Dynasty. Although such a conjecture was incredibly unbelievable, as the Flame Emperor was the spokesperson chosen by the divine weapons, not subject to consumption like ordinary civilians. "I've seen your majesty." Xikong Luan steadied his spirit and said respectfully. "Correct." Lin Yuan nodded slightly. For Xikong Luan to guess his identity was not a difficult task. In the years past, the Defying Divine Society had often cooperated with the Greater Yan Dynasty in secret. Outsiders were unaware of these matters. Even the royal descendants were oblivious. But Xikong Luan, who was in charge of the Defying Divine Society, had some awareness. Next, incite a decisive battle based on the ideas of those evil soldiers. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged on the ground and said indifferently. To completely resolve the issue with the remaining 35 divine weapons, he needed to draw all of them out. If he dealt with them one by one, once the other divine weapons observed Lin Yuan's true strength, they would surely refrain from appearing. And with one divine weapon seeking to hide, with its ability to blend into heaven and earth, Lin Yuan would have no solution. His time in this world was limited. He couldn't afford to wear down the divine weapons indefinitely. Even though Lin Yuan could isolate heaven and earth, his range was limited. Lin Yuan's plan was to have the Defying Divine Society and many evil soldier wielders shake the rule of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, thereby forcing the 35 divine weapons to act. After all, the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms were the divine weapons' breeding grounds. If the Defying Divine Society rebelled, those divine weapons would undoubtedly be the first to be intolerant. Good. Xikong Luan nodded. If it were in the past, he would not have held any hope for such a decisive battle, fearing a recurrence of the calamity of arms from thousands of years ago. But having seen Lin Yuan handle the Sun and Moon Spear just moments earlier, a sliver of extravagant hope suddenly rose in Xikong Lun's heart. Additionally, bring in some people with strong souls. I will personally train some evil soldier wielders. Lin Yuan spoke again. This time, the evil soldier wielders he aimed to train would be top tier with at least 90% integrity of the evil soldiers. Evil soldiers, being fragments of divine weapons from the past, cannot heal themselves, which explains why no evil soldier has been restored to a complete divine weapon in 8,000 years. Yet while evil soldiers couldn't heal themselves, Lin Yuan could. With the many evil soldiers currently at his disposal, Lin Yuan could completely assemble 2 to 3 complete divine weapons. Of course, the assembled divine weapons, with their combat power far lesser than the present 36 divine weapons, would still pale in comparison to their peak during the ancient times because they had just recovered from grave injuries. Add to that, the current 36 divine weapons had further strengthened their power over 8,000 years by reaping the growth of countless lives. But complete evil soldiers could at least sweep all formidable beings below divine weapons. They even had the potential to force the remaining 35 divine weapons to appear. Chapter 84. In Heaven and on Earth. He is the Lord of Warriors just after Lin Yuan suppressed the Sun and Moon Spear, inside the divine weapon ancestral grounds of the other 35 states of the Central Plains. To be exact, massive spiritual fluctuations were reviving. Where is Old 18? Why has Old 18's presence disappeared? What exactly happened? Could it be that Old 18 actively isolated his own presence? Could there have been some accident? We divine weapons, looking down upon all beings, what accident could there be? Tens of huge divine weapon consciousnesses, through the connections in the unknown, began to communicate. Divine weapons originate from the rules of heaven and earth, so as long as they wish, they can naturally sense the presence of other divine weapons effortlessly, provided that the divine weapon doesn't actively isolate its presence. No matter what happened, this period is critical for us to take that step. Even if you consume sacrifices, be careful, and try not to reveal your true body as much as possible. A massive spiritual fluctuation came through from a tower-shaped divine weapon. This tower-shaped divine weapon was the first ever forged by an ancient godly being in bygone years. Among 36 divine weapons, or even among 100, it is considered the strongest. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, another 10 years had gone by. Compared to the past, this decade could truly be described as stormy. The conflict between the defying divine society and the Central Plains 36 kingdoms further escalated. And the truth about beings being domesticated by divine weapons also began to spread widely in the world. Originally, divine weapons using beings as sacrifices, as food, had already caused many in the world to be dissatisfied. After all, how were they any different from the livestock they raised? But under the strong suppression of the Central Plains 36 kingdoms, this dissatisfaction could only be deeply buried in their hearts. There was no way around it. Without a leader to stand up, no matter how dissatisfied or unwilling, they could not come together. But this time, the defying divine society took the initiative to be the leader, calling for beings to stand up in resistance, and no longer be mindless livestock. Great Xia Dynasty. Capital. Inside a tavern. A storyteller was speaking passionately. Ladies and gentlemen, the Central Plains 36 kingdoms regard us as livestock raised by divine weapons. But why should this be? We do not care, for we are already old, but our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren, should they also live like this? By what right? Why should divine weapons remain high above while we are relegated to being food? Why can divine weapons look down upon all beings while we are looked down upon by them? Why can divine weapons decide everything, while we are the ones being decided for? The storyteller was naturally a person from the defying divine society. He came here to propagate the ideas of the defying divine society, and awaken the spirit of resistance in the people of the world. Good. Yes, by what right? I was born a human. Why should I become food? The guests in the tavern suddenly became animated. If it were just them, it might have been nothing, but for generations to come, their descendants, all would live a numb existence like cattle. This was simply unbearable. We must resist. Resist the divine weapons. A young man stood up excitedly. His name was Su Chong. Not long ago, his father had been forcibly conscripted by the great Xia dynasty and had become a sacrifice. Actually, he himself should have been the sacrifice, but his father resolutely took his place in death. Hearing these words now, he was immediately overcome with anger and stood up to echo the words of the storyteller. Not just Su Chong, but others felt the same way. After long-standing grievances, there were definitely many who were dissatisfied with the divine weapons. Meanwhile, atop the platform, the storyteller scanned his surroundings. Inside him, an evil soldier that was 70% intact began to rapidly sense the environment. It's that person, an innate with a strong spirit. He should be suitable to become the master of an evil soldier. The evil soldier's gaze locked onto Su Chong. Good. The storyteller slightly nodded. He remembered Su Chong's appearance. Not good, not good. The officials are coming. Just then, someone rushed into the tavern in a hurry. Don't panic, everyone, the storyteller immediately stood up. There's a secret passage under the platform. If you're worried about encountering the officials, you can leave through this passage. With a wave of the storyteller's hand, a 1-meter-tall entrance appeared. Suddenly, many guests began to leave through the secret passage. What a joke. Slogans promoting the defying divine society sounded pleasant indeed. But if caught by the officials, one would undoubtedly be designated as a sacrifice, to be fed to the divine weapons next time. I was impulsive, so impulsive. Su Chong quickly walked out of the secret passage, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. Only then did he realize that responding to that storyteller had been unwise. No matter how powerful the defying divine society was, the Central Plains 36 kingdoms were the absolute rulers now. The actions he had just taken, if leaked, would bring trouble to his entire family. I cannot die. I still have my mother to support, and my sister is not yet married. Su Chong kept thinking on and on. However, the words I said just now, they really felt thrilling. Su Chong suddenly had this thought cross his mind for some reason. Just as Su Chong steadied his mind, planning to return home, a figure emerged from the shadows ahead. Su Chong looked closely. It was the storyteller from earlier. Young friend. Upon seeing Su Chong, the storyteller's face revealed a smile. Would you like to join us in overthrowing the rule of the divine weapons? Entrance to the underground palace. Sikong Luan, looking at the dazed Su Chong, nodded slightly and said, "Come with me inside." Okay. Su Chong nodded. Even now, he still felt as if he were dreaming. Ever since the storyteller stopped him and asked if he was willing to help overthrow the rule of the divine weapons, Su Chong had, as if possessed by a ghost, agreed. Without even thinking, he had agreed right away. Then he had been led away by the storyteller, turning and twisting, until they arrived here. My mother and my sister. Walking behind Sikong Luan, Su Chong couldn't help but ask. Don't worry, your mother will be well taken care of, and don't fret about your sister. Now that you have joined the Defying Divine Society, all these worries will be addressed. Even if in the future. Sikong Luan paused for a moment before continuing. If the Defying Divine Society loses, wiped out by the encirclement of the 36 states, your parents and family will not be implicated. That's good. Upon hearing this, Su Chong breathed a sigh of relief. For some reason, he believed everything Sikong Luan said. The two made their way along the dark passage of the underground palace, heading deeper inside. Milord. Not knowing what to call Sikong Luan, Su Chong addressed him as Milord. Where are we going now? Su Chong voiced his confusion. The storyteller had only told him they were going to meet an important person, but hadn't revealed who exactly it was. I'm taking you to meet someone. Sikong Luan did not hide anything, adding, to meet the most important person in the Defying Divine Society, who without him, would still be hiding like rats in the sewers. Ah! Su Chong, startled, asked instinctively, so he must be very powerful. Naturally very powerful. Sikong Luan said matter-of-factly. In all the lands under heaven, Sikong Luan hadn't seen anyone stronger than Lin Yuan. I see. Su Chong nodded, half understanding, and tried asking again. Is he a weapon master? In Su Chong's understanding, in the 36 states of the Central Plains, aside from the divine weapons, the weapon masters were the strongest. Weapon masters could operate divine weapons, harnessing their power, and even the powerful blood refinement martial saints, faced with a weapon master, were as vulnerable as ants. Weapon master? Sikong Luan halted, a hint of mockery surfacing on his face. In Sikong Lun's eyes, the so-called divine weapon masters and evil weapon masters, to Lin Yuan, they were all insignificant, easily wiped out. If one must associate Lin Yuan with the divine weapons or the evil weapons, then, in heaven and on earth, he is the master of weapons. Chapter 85. I've been waiting for you guys for a long time soon. Su Chong met Lin Yuan. Compared to the towering presence of those lofty weapon-bearers, Lin Yuan seemed very ordinary to Su Chong, even inferior to the blood refinement martial saint. If it weren't for Sikong Lun's repeated emphasis to maintain the utmost respect, Su Chong would have probably struggled not to look up and scrutinize him. Not bad in aptitude. Lin Yuan looked at Su Chong and gave a slight nod. In terms of spiritual strength, Su Chong ranked in the top 10 among those Lin Yuan had seen. Here, those he had seen, referred to the people Lin Yuan had encountered since his arrival. The cultivation system of this world focused purely on honing the physical body. As for empowering the spirit and soul, there was practically no development. Even the blood refinement martial saint was merely vigorous in vitality. This splitting heaven axe is now yours. A palm-sized black axe flew out with a slight thought from Lin Yuan. Before Lin Yuan suppressed it, the splitting heaven axe was already a nearly complete evil soldier at 90% integrity. Over the years, Lin Yuan had gathered the remaining fragments of the splitting heaven axe and restored it to its entirety. The completed splitting heaven axe was no longer an evil soldier but a true divine weapon. Even though it still wasn't on par with the sun and moon spear and the other 36 divine weapons, it was still superior to other evil soldiers. What is that? Su Chong hadn't recovered from the shock. Before he knew it, he watched the splitting heaven axe flying towards him. Finally, it merged into his forehead, leaving a black axe imprint there. Me. Su Chong just felt something new within his body. A giant axe as big as a mountain faintly appeared in his mind. Try to familiarize yourself with the power of the divine weapon as much as possible, Lin Yuan said indifferently, looking at Su Chong. He had already mastered the inherent rules contained within the splitting heaven axe. Keeping it with him was of no further use. Of course, though Lin Yuan had bestowed the splitting heaven axe to Su Chong, since he had refined it, he could reclaim it with a single thought. Rather than saying Su Chong was the wielder of the splitting heaven axe, it was more accurate to say he was just someone operating it on behalf of Lin Yuan. A divine weapon? Was that just now a divine weapon? Su Chong looked bewildered. How could he have imagined that the black axe was the legendary divine weapon? And furthermore, such a lofty divine weapon, just given away by Lin Yuan like that? Wasn't it said that all divine weapons had their own consciousness, noble and inviolable? But what was happening now? Next, I will leave this place, Lin Yuan continued, not minding Su Chong's astonishment, and turned his gaze to Sikong Luan. After meditating on the sun and moon spear for 10 years, Lin Yuan could step into the 4th rank at any moment. During this time, Lin Yuan wanted to emulate the travelings of the ancient godly being from 10,000 years ago, crossing rivers, surpassing the 5 mountains, and wandering in this world. Yes, Sikong Luan said, seemingly wanting to ask something more but then swallowing his words, he respectfully agreed. Lin Yuan naturally saw Sikong Luan's hesitation and shook his head. If you confront an irresistible force, just cry out Flame Emperor and that will suffice. As the Flame Emperor of the Greater Yan Dynasty, Lin Yuan could naturally be called the Flame Emperor. Understood. Sikong Luan felt a small sense of relief in his heart. With Lin Yuan's words, he felt he had a source of confidence. Flame Emperor? Su Chong silently repeated to himself and carefully stole a glance at Lin Yuan, etching the title deeply into his mind. Before setting out on his journey, Lin Yuan returned to the Greater Yan Imperial Palace once more. The retired Emperor Lu Shi was in good spirits. After Lin Yuan suppressed the sun and moon spear, he had performed the marrow cleansing for him several times. The old man was revitalized and would probably live for another 100 years. Yuaner, no matter what you want to do, go ahead with courage, Lu Shi said, looking at his most satisfactory son. In recent years, the world had been turbulent, with the defying divine society clashing continuously with the 35 states of the Central Plains. Yet the Greater Yan Dynasty remained quiet. Having been an emperor himself for decades, Lu Shi was aware of the underlying issue and speculated that Lin Yuan might have reached some agreement with the defying divine society. The defying divine society, insistent on overthrowing the rule of divine weapons, was essentially opposed to the imperial households of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. Any collusion between Lin Yuan and the defying divine society would certainly be taboo. But Lu Shi trusted his son and believed there must be a reason for his actions. Besides, it was just collusion without any substantial evidence. What could the 35 other states do even if they suspected? Lu Shi could never dream that his son was not merely colluding with the defying divine society but was the mysterious leader of it, responsible for much of the recent turmoil in the world. Time passed. 10 years later. The Central Plains' 36 kingdoms. Daqi Dynasty. The Daqi Emperor's face was gloomy. An angry scowl spread across his visage. Those remnants of the defying divine society. How dare they? How dare they? The Daqi Emperor bellowed as he abruptly stood up, while the many ministers below bowed their heads in silence, not daring to respond. Over the past decade, the defying divine society had mounted a significant resistance against the 35 states of the Central Plains. What started as a spark soon ignited a flaming prairie fire. Initially, the defying divine society was suppressed, but as time passed, their ideals spread, and the discontent among the people of the nations boiled over. Merely within a decade, 7 of the 35 states' powers were overrun by the defying divine society. The nation-protecting divine weapons of these 7 dynasties had vanished as if they never existed, never making an appearance from start to finish. And now the Daqi Emperor had just learned that the Damo dynasty, neighboring the Daqi dynasty, had recently had its capital breached. Damo bordered on Daqi territory. With the fall of the Damo dynasty, the next target would naturally be the Daqi dynasty. In the Daqi court, the Daqi Emperor took a deep breath, and then looked towards the dignified middle-aged man seated beside him. What does the divine weapon have to say? The Daqi Emperor asked, attempting to appear calm. Chapter 86. Been waiting for you a long time. The middle-aged man with a stern face was none other than the divine weapon master of the Daqi dynasty. 8 years ago, the nation protecting divine weapons of 35 countries left their ancestral lands as if by agreement, disappearing without a trace. According to the message left by the divine weapons for the divine weapon masters, they said they were about to take the final crucial step. Now 8 years had passed, and apart from the divine weapon masters occasionally being able to communicate with them, no one else, including the emperors of the nations, could sense the slightest presence of the divine weapons. The divine weapons have said they are nearly done with that step and will return to the world soon, the man with a stern face said, unable to hide his excitement. Although the divine weapons had left a trace of their power within them before they left, ensuring that the divine weapon masters were not completely powerless, It was still far inferior to directly motivating the divine weapons, to the extent that those evil soldier masters could confront them head-on. Very good, very good, very good, the Emperor of Daki said, repeating the word good 3 times. In these years, had it not been for the loss of the divine weapons, how could they have been beaten back step by step by the defying divine society? Fortunately, this difficult time was about to pass. The nation protecting divine weapons would soon reign supreme once more. And as the legitimate dynasty, they would surely return to their previous dominant position. If that's the case, then I will join forces with the other dynasties, fight a decisive battle with the defying divine society, and then suppress them with the divine weapons, wiping out all their remnants at once. The Emperor of Daki, having ruled for decades, immediately thought of a solution that would resolve the issue for decades or even centuries to come. The remnants of the defying divine society, like rats in a sewer, could never be completely eradicated. With the defying divine society's reputation at its peak, they would surely pull out all their tricks. If at this moment they could crush everything about the defying divine society with an overwhelming stance, then for a long time to come, the defying divine society would not be able to recover their primordial chi. On the contrary, if the news that the divine weapons were about to return was leaked, the defying divine society would surely be frightened away, quickly retreating and hiding back in their lairs, coveting the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms with envious eyes. Faced with these 2 methods for dealing with the defying divine society, the Emperor of Daki naturally chose the former. In the central location among the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, the vast region of the 5 peaks was turned into a battlefield, where the forces of the defying divine society and the remaining armies of the 35 countries were arrayed against each other, both sides with incalculable numbers. On the side of the defying divine society. So the 35 nations have decided to battle us so readily? Su Chong sat in his chair with a frown, pondering aloud. After 10 years, Su Chong was no longer the ignorant youth of the past. Through countless battles, he had grown into a qualified divine weapon master. With the full power of the splitting heaven axe in his control, he could even suppress the divine weapon masters of the 35 nations. Even though those divine weapon masters seemed unable to directly draw upon the power of the divine weapons, Su Chong's fierce combat achievements were still renowned throughout the world. Could it be? Su Chong's expression shifted slightly as a thought occurred to him. If the 35 nations were so boldly seeking battle, was it possible that their divine weapons had returned? No matter. If the 35 nations dare to engage in battle, then so shall we. Sikong Luan, seated at the main seat, fell into silence for a while before speaking. All right. Let's fight. Everyone else in the gathering immediately rose to their feet, looking toward the side of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, their eyes brimming with the desire to fight and a thirst for battle. They had been waiting for this day for far too long. On the battlegrounds of the 5 peaks, the 2 sides suddenly began to engage in fierce combat. With an unspoken accord, common soldiers fought common soldiers, cultivators fought cultivators, and divine weapon masters fought divine weapon masters. Die! Su Chong grasped a massive black axe and swung it down fiercely. Immediately, he forced back several divine weapon masters who had surrounded him, and then with a swift motion, his black axe came down, severing one of them. The scene was exhilarating. After all, it was rare for divine weapon masters on the side of the 35 nations to fall, even when their 8 dynasties were breached by the defying divine society. The divine weapon masters and emperors had managed to flee in time. One should know that in other times, the divine weapon masters of the 35 kingdoms were invincible. At that moment, the other battlefield surged with morale, driving the forces of the 35 nations into a continuous retreat. Elsewhere, the emperors of the 35 nations were all gathered in the distant rear. They watched the battlefield from afar, noting their side's ongoing defeat without any change in expression. It's about time. The defying divine society should have no other moves left. It's time for the divine weapons to take action. The Emperor of Daki exchanged a glance with the other emperors, having reached a decision in their hearts. On the battlefield. Thrilling. Su Chong wielded his black giant axe, the force from the divine weapon splitting heaven axe boiling and surging. Suddenly. No good. Those old fellows have arrived. The consciousness of the splitting heaven axe was suddenly shocked, quickly informing Su Chong. What old fellows? Su Chong had not yet reacted when he was startled. You mean the 36 nation protecting divine weapons? Where are they? Su Chong looked around, not retreating easily. Over the years, he had also realized that the splitting heaven axe in his possession was already complete, a true divine weapon, and he felt it was not much weaker than those 36 divine weapons. Even facing them, he would not be scared into a panicked flight. How could they be so strong? This is troublesome, troublesome. They have taken that step. The splitting heaven axe's consciousness trembled, emitting waves of spiritual energy that revealed a sense of despair. Where exactly? Su Chong stood his ground, with no one daring to attack him. They are in the sky. The consciousness of the splitting heaven axe recovered slightly and informed Su Chong. In the sky. Su Chong looked up to the heavens. Above the clouds, unbeknownst to Wen, stood warrior weapons, one after another. Chapter 87. Been waiting for you a long time. Under 3. These military arsenals were majestic and grand, totaling 35 in number, currently perched high in the heavens, overlooking the mortal realm. The 35 colossal armaments suspended in the sky had an aura as vast as the universe itself. This was also the reason Su Chong had not noticed them, because their presence was too overwhelming. It's like being in an endless vast ocean, where you would definitely notice ships sailing above and the occasional islands. As for the ocean itself, it tends to be overlooked. They. Su Chong's teeth were chattering. In his numerous preconceptions, wielding the splitting heaven axe with his strength, even if he couldn't match the 36 divine weapons, the difference wouldn't be too significant. Yet now, having seen the 35 divine weapons with his own eyes, Su Chong realized from the depths of his heart that there was a gulf-like gap between the splitting heaven axe and the former. Accompanied by Su Chong looking up to the sky, more and more people on the battlefield also began looking up to the heavens. It's divine weapons. The divine weapons of my Daki dynasty. And those of the great Chu dynasty. Ha ha ha, the end is near for those remnants of the defying divine society. Countless people from the 35 nations were exhilarated. Some even knelt down on the ground to welcome the descent of the divine weapons. In contrast, the scene at the defying divine society was one of utter despair. Especially those wielders of the evil soldiers, who felt an even deeper sense of heavenly, overwhelming pressure coming from the clouds. At the same time, above the clouds, the 35 divine weapons emitted tremendous mental fluctuations. So much flesh and souls, simply delicious. And those losers, just right to be dealt with this time. This breakthrough, though successful, has greatly depleted my primordial chi, urgently needing flesh and souls for replenishment. Wait, why haven't I seen the old 18 for such a long time? Perhaps the old 18 is also hiding somewhere transforming. He's not done transforming yet. Never mind, I'll enjoy these flesh and souls first. The 35 divine weapons dispersed, their terrifying might enveloping the entire battlefield of the 5 peaks. Begin to feast. In an instant, a divine weapon gently inhaled, and tens of thousands of soldiers from the 35 nations side below turned instantly into skeletons. For the divine weapons, be it the 35 nations or the defying divine society, both were merely food on the plate. Now, due to their breakthrough transformation, they needed flesh and souls, and they wouldn't distinguish whether the food was farmed by them or not. What? Su Chong, looking at the 35 divine weapons above the clouds, was filled with despair. At this moment, as the 35 divine weapons spread out and took positions in all directions, they completely sealed off the battlefield, leaving him no route for escape. It's over. Su Chong was resigned, feeling as if there was no way out for him today. In such a situation, Su Chong subconsciously began to reflect on his life. From his birth, as well as his dad and mom, and his sister. Unfortunately, she was later taken away by that storyteller, struggling against the rule of divine weapons. For some reason, Su Chong's thoughts wandered back to that night 10 years ago. Back then, Sikong Luan had led him into the underground palace, where he met the master of the defying divine society, who also bestowed upon him the splitting heaven axe. Su Chong's memories became progressively clearer, and he seemed to remember the final words that the master of the defying divine society had said, that if he encountered an insurmountable situation, he could shout, "Flame Emperor." Thinking of this, Su Chong, for some reason, instinctively looked up, gazing straight at the 35 divine weapons above the clouds, took a deep breath and shouted angrily, "Flame Emperor!" In order to shout these 2 words, Su Chong burned his blood essence, even harnessing the power of the splitting heaven axe. In an instant, the words "Flame Emperor" spread in all directions, echoing throughout the entire Five Peaks battlefield. The world suddenly fell into silence. Why the hurry? At that moment, another voice came through. Everyone looked up to see a young emperor in a dragon robe, composed and calm, stepping onto thin air, arriving with a gaze sharp as a torch and an aura of authority. The young emperor ascended into the heavens step by step, reaching a position level with the 35 divine weapons. Lin Yuan suspended in the air and looked towards the 35 divine weapons. I've been waiting for you for a long time. Chapter 88. Thousands of years ago and thousands of years later, seeking first subscription, above the clouds. Lin Yuan faced 35 divine soldiers alone. Compared to the towering divine soldiers that stood shoulder to shoulder with the mountains, Lin Yuan seemed exceptionally minuscule, like a speck of dust. Yet, even under the terrifying pressure of the divine soldiers, Lin Yuan still hovered in the air, without showing any signs of irregularity. Who is that? He actually rushed up to the divine soldiers? Is he seeking death? Upon seeing this scene, the emperors of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms all furrowed their brows. Even when the divine soldiers from their side had just swallowed their soldiers, it had only caused them a moment of distress. They almost didn't care at all. It wasn't just the swallowing of 30 to 50,000 soldiers. If all their soldiers were consumed, as long as they could completely crush the defying divine society, the emperors all felt it would be worth it. For the royal families of the 36 kingdoms, soldiers were like leeks, with a new batch able to quickly grow after one is harvested. As long as their status could be maintained, everything else could be tolerated. It's the master of the defying divine society. Is that the emperor of the Greater Yan? Indeed, the Greater Yan dynasty has a significant relationship with the defying divine society, perhaps even behind it. The Flame Emperor. What does he want to do? Declare war on the divine soldiers? But have you noticed? The nation-protecting divine weapon of the Greater Yan dynasty hasn't appeared. Countless people looked up to the sky, including those within and outside the Five Peaks battlefield. The decisive battle between the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms and the defying divine society attracted the attention of every being in this world, such as some hidden world cultivators, and even the consciousnesses within fragments of divine weapons. The great battle of the divine soldiers 8,000 years ago resulted in 64 divine weapons being shattered, falling into the four corners of the world. Some of the divine weapon fragments, unwilling to accept their defeat, became evil soldiers, stirring up trouble in the world upon reappearing. Others, thoroughly disheartened, believed that the 36 nation-protecting divine weapons were invincible and thus remained in hiding. And to most beings, the defying divine society represented the losers of old, many evil soldiers. But now, the appearance of the Flame Emperor undoubtedly surprised most beings. Leaving aside whether Lin Yuan could contend with the 35 divine soldiers, merely his current stance, disregarding the pressure from the 35 divine soldiers, was enough to indicate that this emperor of the Greater Yan had strength far beyond the limits of the human race of this world. Keep in mind, even they, the evil soldiers, faced with the 35 divine soldiers that had already completed their transformation, also trembled with unease and wished they could burrow into holes to hide. Master. Can our master win? On the battlefield, the splitting heaven axe and many other evil soldiers refined by Lin Yuan couldn't help but wonder. They had once felt Lin Yuan's strength up close and it was indeed extremely powerful. Equating him with a true divine weapon was not an overstatement. But now, Lin Yuan was facing not just one divine weapon, but 35 of them, and they had taken that final step. Especially the likes of the top four, who even 8,000 years ago were far stronger than the other divine weapons, let alone now. Above the clouds, under the vast sky, the 35 divine weapons were clearly taken aback. Their colossal psychic fluctuations kept sweeping over Lin Yuan. But what was strange was that all psychic fluctuations, upon approaching within 3 feet of him, were all devoured by some force. It was as if Lin Yuan himself was a black hole, capable of absorbing everything that came near. Interesting. Are you really of the human race? A knife-shaped divine weapon that seemed to be trodden upon by a real dragon emitted psychic waves, tinged with curiosity. For 10,000 years in their eyes, the human race had always been food, so the sudden appearance of an enigma like him was indeed a curiosity. Regardless of whether you are of the human race, I can feel the vastness in you, like an ocean of chi and blood. Swallowing you might allow me to advance another step. Another divine weapon emitted greedy psychic waves. Boom. A force of divine soldiers descended silently. Lin Yuan looked on calmly. Now just his gaze towards the 35 divine soldiers felt like observing some fundamental nature of the world. Since you've all arrived, come in then. Lin Yuan raised his right hand. The force from the divine soldiers dissipated into nothing. Not just that. A terrifying aura suddenly erupted. The vast and expansive Five Peaks battlefield now burst forth with streams of aura, and a giant cage began to take form. 10 years earlier, Lin Yuan, following the steps of ancient godly beings, walked the world and entered the 4th rank in the first year. By understanding the fundamental rules of this realm and reaching the 4th rank, Lin Yuan gained deeper insight into the world. He also vaguely sensed that the nation protecting divine weapons of the other 35 kingdoms were close to a breakthrough. Lin Yuan had tried using his 4th rank strength to squat down and suppress those 35 divine weapons one by one. But these divine weapons were cautious, and with Lin Yuan's strength, while he could have quickly suppressed 5 or 6 of them, it would undoubtedly alert and drive away the rest. In order to capture them all in one fell swoop, Lin Yuan deduced the great trends of the world and quietly maneuvered the war between the defying divine society and the 35 kingdoms, setting their decisive battleground at the 5 Peaks. The 5 Peaks battlefield was located at the central position of the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms, next to rivers and streams. Lin Yuan spent 8 years traversing every corner of the 5 Peaks battlefield, setting up nodes. He transformed the entire 5 Peaks battlefield into a kind of furnace, only waiting for the 35 divine weapons to gather here and consume the beings of both sides. Then he could utilize the furnace to form, and thereafter, suppress the 35 divine weapons. Boom, boom, boom. The terrifying presence came from all directions. Lin Yuan had spent 8 years of his life, forsaking cultivation and sudden enlightenment, placing all his energy on the 5 sacred mountains furnace. At this moment, it suddenly erupted, and its might nearly reached the late 4th rank, its aura causing the 35 divine weapons to tremble. What is this? This is bad, let's get out of here. Upon witnessing this scene, the 35 divine weapons all began to quiver with spiritual fluctuations. For 10,000 years, aside from that ancient godly being, they had never feared anything, not even during the great battle of the divine weapons 8,000 years ago when they emerged as the victors. But now, sensing the overwhelming presence from the entire battlefield of the 5 sacred mountains, all the divine weapons were scared. The 35 divine weapons, without a second thought, scattered in all directions, attempting to flee. On the ground, all those who witnessed this scene were stunned. They hadn't yet recovered from the shift in the atmosphere of the 5 sacred mountains battlefield. Then they saw the 35 esteemed divine weapons flee in panic. Everyone's eyes widened, and it took a long while for them to regain their composure. It turns out, even the exalted divine weapons that stood high in the eyes of all creatures had their day of flight. Impossible. Divine weapons are invincible. How could they flee? In the rear of the 36 nations, the emperors of various dynasties were filled with disbelief. They were all waiting to kneel and welcome the descent of the divine weapons, and now the divine weapons were fleeing? If the divine weapons fled, what should they do? Thinking of leaving now? It's too late. A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. If it were just now when Lin Yuan had appeared, the 35 divine weapons might have chosen to return to heaven and earth, possibly escaping before the 5 sacred mountains furnace completely sealed off the realm. But in Lin Yuan's deductions, this possibility was almost zero. After all, returning to heaven and earth, for the divine weapons, was almost equivalent to being reforged. Their consciousness and memories would be washed away by heaven and earth, which was only slightly better than complete obliteration. How could these divine weapons, having just completed their metamorphosis and not yet enjoyed any benefits, choose such an extreme approach upon encountering an inscrutable person? And just as Lin Yuan had predicted, even when sensing danger, not a single one of the 35 divine weapons chose to return to heaven and earth. Rise! Lin Yuan's thoughts moved once again. The vast Taiji field quickly spread. After advancing to the 4th rank, Lin Yuan's Taiji field gained a huge enhancement once again. The path of Taiji is not limited to Taiyin and Taiyang. It is centered around Taiyin and Taiyang, encompassing all the Tao of the world. This is also why Lin Yuan could continue to improve by comprehending the essence of the rules within other evil soldiers. Break! Among the 35 divine weapons, the tower-shaped one suddenly halted. Its red light flared up as if a great sun burst forth all its light and heat in an instant. The void boiled over, and the sky for hundreds of miles seemed to be boiled all at once, with a misty aura enveloping the entire battlefield of the 5 sacred mountains like clouds. The temperature within hundreds of miles rose, and even for the blood refinement martial saint, the air they breathed through their nostrils seemed to have turned into burning coal, unbearably hot. The terrifying heat exploded, and in an instant, it shattered a portion of the furnace's shape enveloping it within several miles. Water! Seeing this, Lin Yuan reached out again, and the river water outside the 5 sacred mountains battlefield was immediately drawn forth. Great amounts of river water evaporated, quickly blocking the intense heat from the tower-shaped divine weapon. This is bad. Seeing this, the tower-shaped divine weapon became heavy with thought. Because at this moment, the aura from countless nodes within the 5 sacred mountains battlefield all came together. The endless interplay of light and shadow, qi, and the power of heaven and earth outlined a taiji furnace that displayed black and white colors. It formed with a thunderous rumble. The 35 divine weapons, without any exceptions, were all engulfed within the taiji furnace. Suspended below the vast sky, the taiji furnace towered 100 miles high, spanning like a colossal entity. Roaring sounds continued to emerge from within the furnace, indicating that the 35 divine weapons had not given up and were still struggling. But with time, this struggle grew increasingly weaker. The 36 divine weapons, all captured in my pot. Lin Yuan stepped out and sat atop the furnace. Then a spear-shaped divine weapon engraved with the sun and moon flew out, willingly entering the furnace. All the 36 divine weapons emerged from heaven and earth. To facilitate comprehension, Lin Yuan unhesitatingly placed the sun and moon spear inside as well. Next is suppression and enlightenment. Lin Yuan sat down cross-legged, calming his mind. The divine weapons have been suppressed? On the ground, everyone who witnessed this scene, whether human or the consciousness of evil soldiers, were all struck by an overwhelming shock. 10,000 years ago, an ancient godly being walked the world, sacrificing mountains and rivers, melting the 4 seas, forging 100 weapons. Majestically for 10,000 years, all creatures bowed their heads. 10,000 years later, a young emperor sat high in the heavens, cooking the rivers, refining the 5 sacred mountains, subduing the 36 weapons. With his resplendent heavenly might, all spirits looked up in reverence. Chapter 89. Divine Weapon Shattered. Subscribe please. The 36 divine weapons are not merely divine weapons. They are also part of some complete essence of rules. If it were someone else, even if they had the strength to suppress the divine weapons, it would be difficult for them to benefit from them. After all, the essence of the realm's rules, even if explicitly shown, is hard for ordinary people to comprehend much. It's like a complex mathematical problem. Even if the solution process is fully written out, others might not be able to understand it. 10,000 years ago, that ancient godly being literally split the 100 divine weapons from heaven and earth, and then took the opportunity to comprehend them, benefiting greatly. But Lin Yuan was different. With his against heaven's understanding, comprehending such things came naturally to Lin Yuan. This time I've made a big gain. Lin Yuan's consciousness descended into the taiji furnace. It could be said that his biggest gain from this journey was the divine weapons of this world. As for the rest, far from comparing to the fundamental great Tao of rule essence. It's a pity that these divine weapons originate from this world and can't be taken away. Lin Yuan felt somewhat regretful. He wasn't coveting the divine weapons' power, as there were many weapons in the main world whose might far exceeded that of the divine weapons. The divine weapons contained the essence of the world's rules. If he could take them back to the main world, then sell them or submit them to the goddess of wisdom, he would definitely make a huge profit. After all, other citizens, even if they couldn't comprehend the divine weapons as completely as Lin Yuan, would definitely spend a lot of money to buy them if they were even slightly touched by them. However, since the divine weapons are expressions of this world's rules, they would dissipate once they left this world. If it were not so, Lin Yuan, at any cost, would have attempted it. Although he descended in consciousness to this world, the door to the myriad realms was able to take back items from the worlds it traversed by accumulating energy. However, how much energy was needed, Lin Yuan did not know. Forget it. Let's fully comprehend the essence of the rules in all the divine weapons first. Lin Yuan gathered his thoughts and began to carefully comprehend. The entire taiji furnace was an extension of his 5 senses. With just a thought from Lin Yuan, he could feel the position of any of the 36 divine weapons inside. compared to Lin Yuan, who was deeply comprehending the divine weapons. The surface of the Wu Yu battlefield was completely erupting into chaos. How can the Flame Emperor be so powerful? Those are complete divine weapons. Even the divine weapons have been suppressed by the Flame Emperor. Should we continue to fight with the defying divine society? On the side of the 35 kingdoms, countless people looked up at the sky, gazing at the 100-mile furnace stretching between heaven and earth. This scene was too inconceivable. No one could imagine how the Flame Emperor managed to do this, and the shock in their hearts was imaginable. Actually, surrendering to Greater Yen might not be a bad thing. At least our descendants won't be devoured by divine weapons in the future. Someone suddenly had this thought. In the past, with divine weapons ruling, they wouldn't dare to have such thoughts even if they had 10 times or 100 times the courage. But now the divine weapons looming over their heads had already been suppressed, meaning that even if they were exploited in the future, they wouldn't have to worry about being devoured. Impossible. I don't believe it. This is all an illusion. Everything is an illusion. The emperors of the 35 kingdoms were falling apart. They had staked everything on the divine weapons. They even actively instigated a decisive battle with the defying divine society, just waiting for the divine weapons to finally act and sweep away everything. And now they were told that the divine weapons were swept away? Not only swept away but suppressed by the Flame Emperor. Not one escaped, extinguishing the last hope of turning the game around for these emperors. Gentlemen. At this moment, an older emperor slowly began to speak. What we need to consider now is how to deal with the defying divine society and the Greater Yen dynasty, he said. The emperor sighed. As soon as these words were spoken, all the emperors fell silent. Why don't we surrender? The emperor of the Great Chu dynasty tentatively asked. In fact, this was what most of the emperors were thinking. Though the lands and heritage handed down by our ancestors should not be discarded lightly. Now, facing both the Greater Yen dynasty and the defying divine society, these 35 nations had no trump cards left. Not to mention anything else. Just the power displayed by the Emperor of Greater Yen was enough to annihilate their 35 nations. No matter how they struggled, it was merely delaying the inevitable. Rather than this, it would be better to surrender proactively, as they might receive better treatment. Your Majesty. Sikong Luan looked up at the figure above the sky and atop the furnace. Though diminutive, at that moment in Sikong Lun's eyes, it seemed taller than the entire furnace. All right, everyone. His Majesty has already resolved the issue of the divine weapon for us. Now it's our turn to sweep through the 35 nations and overthrow the rule of the divine weapons. Sikong Luan, looking at the army caught up in a fervor, immediately issued the command to attack. With Lin Yuan suppressing the furnace from above, the 35 nations had no courage to resist, and the defying divine society together with the Greater Yen dynasty swiftly took control of the entire battlefield. The emperors of the 35 nations, except for 3 who escaped, were all captured. Sikong Luan did not order the execution of these emperors, as they could still be useful in governing the territories of the 35 nations in the future. Do you see clearly now? Has that Flame Emperor really reached the realm of the Father God? Outside the battlefield of the 5 mountains, 7 or 8 figures of evil soldiers with their auras concealed gathered. These evil soldiers, never having appeared in the world before, came quietly due to the decisive battle between the 35 nations and the defying divine society, only to witness such a shocking scene. Even if he's not as strong as the Father God, he's not far behind. An umbrella-shaped divine weapon emitted a faint mental fluctuation. Its integrity was 95% complete, and its memory was fully intact, retaining a general impression of the ancient godly being. Father God. The mental fluctuations of the umbrella-shaped divine weapon spread out, and its memories from 10,000 years ago had become blurred. They only remembered that they were forged by the Father God. For such divine weapons, the Father God was everything. And now, another being comparable to the Father God had emerged. Originally, the umbrella-shaped divine weapon thought that this being would be one of those 36 divine weapons. After all, those 36 divine weapons had devoured lives for 8,000 years. If anyone in the world was likely to follow in the footsteps of the Father God, it would be them. Unexpectedly, the Flame Emperor emerged, surpassing the millennium accumulation of the 36 divine weapons with a speed incomprehensible to all beings, and forcefully advanced to that level. Above the vault of heaven, Lin Yuan sat atop the Taiji furnace, suspended in the sky, as if looking down upon all beings. This led to the most direct consequence, which was that the Defying Divine Society and the Greater Yan dynasty conquered the territories of the other 35 nations with unprecedented ease. Normally, to fully conquer a nation, a substantial cost is required. Time, policy, energy and such. After all, even if you breach the enemy's capital and take over all their territory, as long as the people of that capital are alive, various restoration organizations and forces will emerge. But now, if you are not convinced if you wish to restore your country, you can look up to the sky. Look at the 36 divine weapons suppressed to death by the Flame Emperor. Thus, even the most patriotic individuals have extinguished the thought of restoration. After all, to restore a country, one must have hope. No one believes that under the watchful eyes of the Flame Emperor, high in the heavens, they could stir any waves. Thus, as the Flame Emperor sat enthroned in the vault of heaven, looking down on all beings, 20 years had once again passed. Above the Taiji furnace, Lin Yuan finally opened his eyes. Finally, it's done. Lin Yuan's eyes shone with splendor. 20 years of meditation, with the aid of the Taiji furnace's power, had finally enabled him to fully comprehend the essence of the 36 divine weapons. Since ancient times, perhaps only that ancient godly being from 10,000 years ago had accomplished this feat, and the ancient godly being had even taken a shortcut, and the time taken surpassed Lin Yuan's. Foundation, depth. Lin Yuan carefully felt the changes within himself. After incorporating the essence of the rules of the 36 divine weapons and many evil soldiers into the Tao of Taiji, Lin Yuan was still at the 4th rank, but he vaguely saw the path to the 5th rank. In the main world, the 3rd rank is known as City Destroyer grade, a full strike capable of destroying half a city. While the 5th rank is the continent sinking rank, at this stage, an evolver single strike can sink continents, considered the strongest life on the surface, one step further and it is the 6th rank fallen star level. No rush, no rush. Lin Yuan calmed his spirit, temporarily setting aside thoughts about the 5th rank. He hadn't even completely walked through the 4th rank yet. Thinking about the 5th rank was entirely undue worry. Ancient godly being. Lin Yuan's expression fell into brief contemplation. Having fully understood the 36 divine weapons and refined them, Lin Yuan naturally obtained more memories about these 36 divine weapons. The memories of the ancient godly being in the sun and moon spear were sparse, as it was the 18th to be born. But the 1st-ranked tower-shaped divine weapon, and other highly ranked divine weapons, were privy to much information about the ancient godly being. Especially that tower-shaped divine weapon, which even knew the last place the ancient godly being disappeared. Over there. Lin Yuan sat atop the Taiji furnace, gazing northward. According to the memories of that tower-shaped divine weapon, before the ancient godly being disappeared, it had mentioned a few things. The general idea was, the ancient godly being was not originally a creature of this world. Rather, due to an accident, it fell from another world. Now that its injuries are healed, it planned to return to its home world. As for how to return, before falling into this world, the ancient godly being had torn a rift on the edge of the world with its last strength. By following that rift, passing through the spatial turbulence, one could approach the ancient godly being's home world. By then, the ancient godly being only needed to activate a secret technique, and it could bring the brethren from its home world to guide it back. Other worlds. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly. The worlds are actually interconnected. This point, Lin Yuan had realized back in the previous world, the Dragon Tiger world. The true martial sword of the Celestial Master Mansion was from a higher world, and so was the primeval demon spirit. If I could go to the ancient godly being's homeworld, wouldn't it be like killing 2 birds with 1 stone? Lin Yuan's thoughts raced. He suddenly realized. Undoubtedly, the home world of the ancient godly being, in terms of level, must surpass the current world. Otherwise, the ancient godly being wouldn't have been able to extract the essence of the world and its rules 10,000 years ago. If Lin Yuan could go there, he would certainly reap greater benefits. Actually, traveling between worlds is a very dangerous matter. The ancient godly being is an example. Initially falling into this world, it nearly perished outright. But this time Lin Yuan's presence was a mere consciousness descent, with no risk of death. Even if he perished on the spot, he would simply return to the main world. Having fully understood and refined the 36 divine weapons and many evil soldiers, Lin Yuan had already made a significant gain. Even if the journey failed, there would be no loss. No rush for now. Wait until the last 20 years to discuss it. Lin Yuan thought to himself. From Lin Yuan's 160-year sojourn, 30 years remained. In the remaining time, Lin Yuan planned to handle the affairs needing conclusion. As for you, Lin Yuan looked down, glancing at the furnace beneath his feet. 20 years of repeated refining had long erased the consciousness of the 36 divine weapons. To give birth to new consciousness, it would need several hundred, even thousands of years. Shatter! Lin Yuan's thoughts slightly shifted. Sea racks began appearing on the surface of the 36 divine weapons. The cracks spread, expanded, and split. Eventually, all the divine weapons were reduced to a pile of fragments. Divine weapons are the external manifestations of the essence of the world's rules. They cannot be destroyed, but Lin Yuan could completely shatter them. In this way, even if new consciousnesses were born in the future, their threat would be far less than that of the complete divine weapons. The Five Peaks Battlefield. Ever since 20 years ago, when the Emperor of the Greater Yen decisively suppressed the many divine weapons, this place had become the holy land of the world. Especially after the Greater Yen dynasty unified the Central Plains' 36 kingdoms and established an unprecedentedly unified nation, countless people came here in admiration daily. After all, other places at most had relics. But at the Five Peaks battlefield, one could truly see that legendary Emperor of the Greater Yen. As long as that 100-mile-wide black and white furnace didn't disappear, the Emperor of the Greater Yen would remain seated at its summit. And on this day, under the gaze of countless onlookers, the black and white furnace slowly dissipated. Chapter 90: A Millennium of Darkness. A single lamp brings light. Please subscribe. The Wu Yu Battlefield. The disappearance of the 100-mile furnace. It caused a tremendous upheaval. After all, that furnace had spanned the skies for 20 years. It had long become the pillar of faith for the human race under heaven. Because this was, historically, the first time the human race had triumphed over the divine weapons, the evidence of victory over the beings that had ruled over them for 10,000 years. The Greater Yen capital. After Sikong Luan led the Defying Divine Society to defeat 35 countries, he swiftly submitted to the Greater Yen dynasty and took the position of prime minister. Sikong Luan was well aware that Lin Yuan was the emperor of the Greater Yen dynasty. After defeating the other 35 nations, he did not hesitate to begin assisting the Greater Yen dynasty. For 20 years, the Greater Yen dynasty had unified the Central Plains, and apart from Lin Yuan's deterrence, it was closely related to Sikong Luan's maneuvers as well. On this day, Sikong Luan finished reading the intelligence in his hands. He suddenly stood up. The furnace has disappeared? Sikong Luan looked at the intelligence in his hands again. And His Majesty is also missing? A trace of worry surfaced on Sikong Luan's face. Su Chong. Sikong Luan spoke. Su Chong immediately walked in from outside. What's the matter? Su Chong asked in confusion. I want you to take a trip to the Wu Yu battlefield and look for... Sikong Luan had not finished speaking, when a gentle voice sounded in his ear. Looking for me, are you? Lin Yuan appeared inside the room with a smile brimming in his eyes. Your Majesty. Upon hearing the familiar voice, Sikong Luan immediately teared up. Flame Emperor. Seeing Lin Yuan, Su Chong shrank his head a little, somewhat afraid to speak. 20 years ago, on the battlefield of Wu Yu, his cry of Flame Emperor had spread across the entire battlefield. Who knows how many had heard it? Following this, Lin Yuan appeared and replied with a "What's the rush?" in a slightly dissatisfied tone. Thus, for these 20 years, Su Chong had an extremely tough time. In fact, Su Chong felt rather wronged in his heart. It was Lin Yuan who had said back then, when facing an unstoppable situation, he could call out that name. The situation at the time truly was unstoppable, wasn't it? The 35 high and mighty divine weapons were beginning to devour everything. Your Majesty, I heard that the furnace has disappeared? Moments later, Sikong Luan cautiously inquired. How is Wenger doing now? Instead of directly answering, Lin Yuan asked a question in return. Wenger, Lu Zhang, was the offspring born to Lin Yuan and a blood-refining female martial saint over 30 years ago, after much cajoling from Dowager Wang Shangfeng. The reason why it had to be a martial saint of that level was naturally that Lin Yuan's physique was excessively powerful at the time. Ordinary women couldn't bear Lin Yuan's child, let alone withstand Lin Yuan's essence. Even if it was a female martial saint, if Lin Yuan hadn't significantly weakened his own vitality, she couldn't have borne it either. Finally, the female martial saint bore a son for Lin Yuan, who from birth was raised as a crown prince by the Greater Yan dynasty. Prince Zhang is extremely intelligent and is not a... Before Xikong Luan could say not inferior to Lin Yuan, he felt it was an exaggeration and stopped himself. Who was he kidding? Who was Lin Yuan? Over these years, he has been known as the foremost sage monarch under 10,000 years on the Central Plains. Even if Lu Zhang were highly intelligent, he could not match Lin Yuan's authority. Under the heaven. For 10,000 years. And 10,000 years to come. Even after eons and generations, it's estimated that there will only be one Lin Yuan, with no second to rival him. That's good then. Lin Yuan nodded slightly. He didn't have high expectations for Lu Zhang. Maintaining the foundation of the Greater Yan dynasty was sufficient. Your Majesty, those divine weapons? Xikong Luan asked once again, cautiously. It couldn't be helped. This question was too important. The divine weapons have all been shattered by me, Lin Yuan said nonchalantly. Shattered? Xikong Luan was slightly startled. Can't they be completely destroyed? Unable to hold back, Xikong Luan asked. Divine weapons, even if shattered, could turn into evil soldiers and continue to spawn consciousness. Divine weapons, born of heaven and earth, cannot be destroyed, Lin Yuan stated directly. This was something ancient godly beings couldn't do 10,000 years ago, and neither could Lin Yuan. Are you worried that, after I leave in 100 or 1,000 years, those divine weapon fragments will once again develop consciousness and reenact the scene of divine weapons ruling the world? Lin Yuan discerned Xikong Lun's concerns. Even evil soldiers, far from the might of complete divine weapons, possessed strength far surpassing that of a blood refinement martial saint. By then, without Lin Yuan, once the divine weapon fragments begin to wreak havoc, there will be no one in the world to stop them. Your Majesty is correct. Xikong Luan showed a bitter smile. Do not worry. Lin Yuan raised his right hand and pointed slightly towards the brows of Xikong Luan and Su Chong. Instantly, a great deal of information flowed into the minds of the two men. It was the cultivation system that Lin Yuan had perfected in the past few decades, based on the existing cultivation system of this world. It discarded the original system's flaws that only refine the body, and took into account the spiritual soul. This cultivation system, also influenced by Lin Yuan, dictates that above a martial saint lies a martial god, and above a martial god lies a celestial being. Normally, by cultivating to the martial god realm, one could match or even surpass those divine weapon fragments. Lin Yuan's passing down of this cultivation system was providing the human race with hope for future generations. With such a perfected cultivation system, even if surpassing martial saints is difficult, every few decades, there will nonetheless be geniuses who cultivate to the martial god realm. What is this? Xikong Luan rapidly absorbed the information in his mind, his face increasingly astonished. He immediately realized the terrifying aspect of the cultivation system Lin Yuan had transmitted to him. While largely similar to the original body refinement martial apprentice, tendon refinement martial apprentice, skin refinement martial master, bone refinement martial master, organ refinement innate martial master, marrow refinement great grandmaster, and blood refining martial saint cultivation system, Lin Yuan had added how to refine the spiritual soul at every stage, achieving a transformation of both body and spirit. As a result, blood refinement martial saints were no longer the end, with even more powerful martial gods and celestial beings within reach. According to the realm descriptions, martial god realm alone was sufficient to counter those evil soldiers. This was unprecedented since ancient times. This cultivation system. Su Chong swallowed hard, for he was a divine weapon master, since the splitting heaven axe was already a complete divine weapon. Yet, how many such weapon masters could there be in the world? And even then he relied on the divine weapon within him, without which he was nothing. Nowhere could compare to the cultivation system Lin Yuan had passed to him. Power gathered within oneself, and upon reaching the ultimate stage, one would not be inferior to an evil soldier master and would gain the benefit of longevity. On behalf of all beings in the world, I express my deepest gratitude for your Majesty's tremendous grace and virtue. Xikong Luan knelt to the ground with a thud, sincerely expressing his words. If Lin Yuan's suppression of all divine soldiers on the 5 peak battlefields was a feat that overshadowed his contemporaries, then imparting this cultivation system was a feat that would overshadow all generations. From today onward, all cultivators must remember the grace of Lin Yuan, and they cannot forget it for the rest of their lives. All right. Get up. Lin Yuan waved his hand. He spoke with indifference. To him, this cultivation system was nothing special. He passed it down merely because he did not want to see future generations of the human race become mere food for the divine soldiers again. After all, at this moment, Lin Yuan was also a member of the human race, and the Greater Yan dynasty was a dynasty of the human race. Whether it was helping his kin or standing up for what was right, Lin Yuan would have acted the same way. There's another matter for my visit here. Lin Yuan seemed to remember something as he looked towards Su Chong. Ah! Su Chong blinked, not knowing what had happened. Come out. As soon as Lin Yuan finished his sentence, a black axe flew out from within Su Chong. It was the Splitting Heaven axe. Before I came here, I had already shattered all evil soldiers and divine soldiers, and erased their consciousnesses. You cannot be an exception. Lin Yuan held the Splitting Heaven axe in his hand. The indestructible divine weapon was as fragile as cotton in Lin Yuan's hands. With just a slight press, it broke into dozens of pieces, its inner consciousness completely erased. Although the Splitting Heaven axe had been refined by Lin Yuan and was absolutely loyal, Lin Yuan was not certain that it wouldn't change after he left this world. To be safe, no complete divine weapon could remain. All right. Lin Yuan glanced at Su Chong, whose expression had turned somewhat downcast. With your talent, if you cultivate the system I've imparted, it's very likely you'll step into the martial god realm. Lin Yuan added. He had modified that cultivation system, mainly adding the fortification of the spiritual soul. And Su Chong originally possessed a strong innately spiritual soul. Otherwise, he could not have become the wielder of the Splitting Heaven axe. It's time to leave. Lin Yuan once again glanced at Sikong Luan and Su Chong. His figure silently disappeared from the spot. Your Majesty! Sikong Luan felt an emptiness in his heart, as if he had lost something forever. No. We must record that cultivation system immediately. Sikong Luan rallied his spirits and had people bring in paper and brush. Then he quickly recorded the information from his mind. Chancellor Sikong, you are getting on in years. Should I write it instead? Su Chong scratched his head, feeling much better after Lin Yuan's reminder. No. This cultivation system is too important. I can only rest assured if I write it. Sikong Lun's eyes burned with intensity as he rapidly moved the brush, continually recording. 2 hours later. Looking at the complete cultivation system in front of him, Sikong Luan was excited. With this cultivation system, the human race would completely break free from the past thousands of years of being food for divine soldiers. Even if a complete divine weapon appeared in the future, the human race would have the possibility to resist, no longer like in the past where they could only beg pathetically. All the humiliation and resentment vanished under this cultivation system, and from then on, the human race of this land would truly stand upright. Your Majesty! Sikong Luan thought of Lin Yuan again, his eyes reddening, murmuring to himself. 1,000 years in darkness. One lamp brings light. Outside the Central Plains 36 kingdoms, in the utmost northern lands. This place was bitterly cold, and even a blood refinement martial saint could not endure for long under such low temperatures. The extreme cold made this area a forbidden zone for life. For tens of thousands of years, no creature had ever come here. However, on this day, a figure slowly entered this place. The extreme cold had no effect whatsoever on this figure. Within a few dozen meters of this figure, it was surprisingly warm and comfortable. This is the place. Lin Yuan stopped, looking around. This was where, according to the memory of the divine weapon, the last traces of an ancient godly being were found. It is also from here that the ancient godly being returned to their native realm. Space Rift. Lin Yuan continued walking forward, faintly detecting the aura of a spatial rift. Shortly after, Lin Yuan saw the source of the aura. It was an irregular form, as if part of a painting had been torn open. Within it, wisps of gray mist were faintly visible. Is this where the ancient godly being left from all those years ago? Lin Yuan fell silent for a moment. Merely looking at it, Lin Yuan could sense a very dangerous feeling. It was evident that once he truly stepped inside, there would be no hope of survival. Lin Yuan lingered for a while before making a decisive return. Although he did not know how the ancient godly being managed to go inside, he was sure he couldn't do it. If there was any hope of survival, Lin Yuan wouldn't mind gambling the next 20 years of his life. But as it appeared, there wasn't even a glimmer of hope, so naturally, Lin Yuan knew how to choose. 20 years was time enough. With his against heaven's understanding, even just loitering in this world could lead to no small advancement. It made no sense to waste it on uncertain death. Time slowly passed. In the blink of an eye, 20 years had gone by. Over these 20 years, Lin Yuan traveled around the Central Plains. He saw with his own eyes how the greater Yan dynasty grew increasingly powerful, and the cultivation system he had passed down broadly disseminated. Name, Lu Yuan, Lin Yuan. Identity, holder of the Myriad Realms Gate. Bound talent, against heaven's understanding. Current status, consciousness descent. Remaining residence time, 1 hour. Until the time of his residency was about to expire, Lin Yuan once again came to the utmost northern lands, to that space rift. Since I'm going to return soon anyway, I might as well take a look inside. Lin Yuan's mind stirred, and the Taiji field contracted to just an inch from his body surface. This degree of Taiji stance could be considered Lin Yuan's strongest defensive stance. Let's go. Lin Yuan took a step and entered the space rift. Chapter 91. Return. Global Top 10? Why so weak? As if in a trance, Lin Yuan opened his eyes. Is this death? Scenes from stepping into the space-time rift emerged in Lin Yuan's mind. It was an endless and chaotic flow of space. Without color. Without direction. Before Lin Yuan could react, his body began to collapse. The Taiji field, his physical form, consciousness, soul, and everything else. All collapsing. Lucky I didn't go in 20 years ago, otherwise what a waste of time that would have been. Lin Yuan thought to himself. From the first glimpse of the space-time rift, Lin Yuan felt an extreme sense of danger. So he decided to leave decisively. He spent those 20 years continuing to travel the world, seeking enlightenment along the way, and incidentally solving several disasters for the greater Yan dynasty, training several martial gods and firmly establishing the Lu family's reign. How exactly did that ancient godly being from 10,000 years ago leave? Lin Yuan wondered slightly. According to his speculation, the ancient godly being could have been at most 4th rank peak, definitely not surpassing 5th rank. Yet, facing that level of spatial turbulence, even a 5th rank would not survive for long. Anyway, Lin Yuan decided not to overthink it. He started to take stock of this traversal. Without a doubt, the greatest gain from this traversal was opening up the 3rd and 4th rank levels of the martial arts evolution system. Although before the traversal, Lin Yuan had already stepped into 3rd rank, he had just entered the beginning phase of 3rd rank, the middle phase, late phase, and peak, and so on, were all perfected in the Divine Arms world. In the end, he even took the big leap into 4th rank. One must know. The path of cultivation that Lin Yuan chose was the most difficult, the path of the essence of rules. If it were just a normal breakthrough to 4th rank, it certainly wouldn't have taken Lin Yuan so long. The essence of rules. Lin Yuan walked out of the nutrition capsule, faintly sensing the vast and endless rules from all directions of the cosmic starry sky. Compared to the Divine Arms world, the essence of the rules in the main world were undoubtedly much more powerful. Not just vast but also more complete. In the main world, trying to forcibly extract its essence of rules like the ancient godly being did, is almost impossible. It's not a matter of strength. Anyone who dares to do so will surely be crushed by the main world's overwhelming power. It's been over 2 days, not too bad. Lin Yuan glanced at the time and had a clear idea in his mind. 160 years in the Divine Arms world, in the main world barely 50 hours had passed. My current realm is probably equivalent to 4th rank, 9th stage. Lin Yuan assessed himself. Just over 10 years after suppressing the Sun and Moon Spear, he stepped into 4th rank. The following 8 or 9 years were spent arranging nodes on the 5 sacred battlefields, in order to form the Taiji furnace to suppress the 35 divine weapons. The 20 years of wandering the world after that were spent truly on enlightenment and cultivation. From 1st stage to 9th stage of 4th rank, basically all were perfected during these 20 years. Of course, realm is realm. Lin Yuan's current strength still remained at the early stage of 3rd rank. Choose the right cosmic spiritual objects, and recovery will happen quickly. Lin Yuan opened the online marketplace and began to make his selections. For an evolver, the most important thing is their own realm. What about power intensity? If you lose control over your realm, it's meaningless. These 2 will do. After a moment of thought, Lin Yuan confirmed his choice of spiritual objects. His cultivation system still revolved around Tai Yin and Tai Yang as the main core of the Taiji path, so naturally, he chose cosmic spiritual objects with Yin and Yang attributes. 12 billion. Lin Yuan looked at the price. This traversal had Lin Yuan advancing levels far beyond the past 2 times. From the early stage of 3rd rank to 4th rank 9th stage, that's a difference of 21 stages. Therefore, the quality and level of the cosmic spiritual objects he selected this time were naturally high. Indeed, had he not had 4th level citizen privileges, Lin Yuan, no matter how wealthy, would not even be able to see objects of such quality. Still short on money, Lin Yuan sighed. Normally speaking, an evolver at the early stage of 3rd rank, cultivating to 4th rank 9th stage, even with smooth sailing and no bottlenecks, would take hundreds or thousands of years. This is provided that they have a complete evolution path to guide them. For a 3rd rank evolver spreading the cost of 12 billion over hundreds of years, it's not a pressure at all. It's just Lin Yuan, this peculiar freak, whose advancement speed in a short period was too fast, leading to his wealth not being able to keep up. 4th level citizens have a 10 billion loan limit, plus my tournament winnings. Lin Yuan confirmed his identity information and purchased the 2 cosmic spiritual objects. The group stage of this tournament provided Lin Yuan with nearly 10 billion in prize money. As for the individual competition, since the individual competition has not yet ended, all prize money will be settled once it's over. Let's upload the 3rd rank chapter that was deduced from this traversal. Facing a decrease in his account balance, Lin Yuan made up his mind. Uploading the subsequent parts of the martial path evolutionary path has only benefits for Lin Yuan, no disadvantages. Firstly, it would result in a large amount of merit points. In the Cosmic Human Alliance, merit points are extremely important. Ordinary citizens primarily have 3 ways to earn merit points. One is to enlist in the army and fight with different species on the frontier. For every different species killed, you contribute to the whole human civilization, thus you can obtain corresponding merit points. Another way is to serve the human civilization, and based on the assessment of the 3 goddesses, one can also receive relevant merit points. Take the governor of Kanglan Star for example. If public satisfaction is high during his tenure, and he makes genuine contributions to the planet, he can receive corresponding merit points as a reward. Chapter 92. Return. Global Top 10? Why so weak? _2 The 3rd aspect involves research and development and inventions, which include various novel discoveries, encompassing evolutionary paths and other types of technology. Beyond the aforementioned 3 categories, there are other ways to earn merit points. For example, accidentally discovering traces of different species or their conspiracies, and then reporting these to the Goddess of Wisdom, thus preventing human civilization from suffering losses, after which the Goddess of Wisdom would impartially determine the importance of this intel and award merit points accordingly. In Lin Yuan's mind, uploading evolutionary paths was undoubtedly the most cost-effective way to acquire merit points. As for killing different species, on the battlegrounds at the frontier, fraught with risks, Lin Yuan saw no need to take this risk. And serving the Cosmic Human Alliance? Taking on a minor official position felt too troublesome and came with the pressure of making achievements. Moreover, perfecting the martial path evolutionary path had another advantage. That was to improve one's ranking on the Kanglan evolution ranking. You see, it's not as if once Lin Yuan uploaded the evolutionary path to the Goddess of Wisdom, it ceased to be his. Lin Yuan was still the founder of the evolutionary path, and within the Cosmic Human Alliance, every citizen who purchased the martial path evolutionary path for cultivation would result in Lin Yuan receiving 30% of the income. The higher the potential of the martial path evolutionary path, the higher it ranked on the evolution ranking, and the greater the promotion it received. The more wealth Lin Yuan would ultimately accumulate. Key point is, this source of income was continuous. And that was only the direct impact. Being the founder of a powerful evolutionary path, there were many indirect, hidden influences as well. 3rd rank chapter. Lin Yuan began to significantly modify the 3rd rank chapter of the martial path evolutionary path with his Against Heaven's understanding, making it suitable for citizens of the main world to cultivate. 2 days later, Lin Yuan opened his eyes. Goddess of Wisdom. Lin Yuan directly connected to the Goddess of Wisdom. Respected 4th level citizen Lin Yuan, the Goddess of Wisdom is pleased to serve you. Since being promoted to a 4th level citizen, the Goddess of Wisdom had become increasingly gentler in her treatment of Lin Yuan. I want to upload the 3rd rank chapter of the martial path evolutionary path. Lin Yuan spoke. As for why there was no 4th rank chapter, Lin Yuan himself was still at the 4th rank 9th stage, and had not fully completed this level, so there was no need to upload it in advance. Besides, the 3rd rank chapter was sufficient. The rule essence pathway Lin Yuan had chosen was already reflected in the 3rd rank chapter. Accompanied by Lin Yuan swiftly uploading the 3rd rank chapter content. In a mysterious space countless light-years from Kanglin's star, massive screens flashed rapidly, as immense computational power frenetically assessed and deduced the value of the 3rd rank chapter of the Martial Path Evolutionary System. The 3rd rank chapter uploaded by Lin Yuan was divided into a Martial God chapter and Heaven Man chapter. Detected Martial God chapter contains a higher order method to forge the body. Detected Heaven Man chapter involves the power of origin rules, beginning re-evaluation of the potential of the Martial Path Evolutionary Path. Evaluation complete. Current Martial Path Evolutionary Path has a 10% probability to promote to 5th rank evolution path, and a 60% probability to promote to 6th rank evolution path. Probability of the Martial Path Evolutionary Path promoting to 6th rank evolution path exceeding 50%, triggering the Charter Secrecy Protocol. Relevant contingency plans generated, henceforth. All promotions concerning Human Citizen Code 123****** will be handled by the 3 goddesses, no other. Authorizations needed. Beginning valuation of the 3rd rank chapter. 40,000 merit points. Is there a need to seek nearby highest citizen authorization? No need. Shueihua Residential Complex. Residence number 32. Lin Yuan was adapting to his current, frail physical body. The solemn and cool voice of the Goddess of Wisdom rang out. Respected 4th level citizen Lin Yuan. So quickly. Lin Yuan appeared somewhat surprised. Compared to his previous uploads of evolutionary paths, the response from the Goddess of Wisdom was much quicker this time. After the final evaluation, your uploaded 3rd rank chapter is valued at 40,000 merit points. The Goddess of Wisdom provided the response. Good. Lin Yuan nodded. 40,000 merit points was not the value of the entire Martial Path Evolutionary Path, but specifically the value of the 3rd rank chapter. Too bad, still short some merit points to promote to a 5th level citizen. Lin Yuan glanced at his merit points balance. A 4th level citizen aiming to promote to a 5th level citizen needed 50,000 merit points. Since Lin Yuan's promotion to 4th level citizen had consumed 10,000 merit points, leaving him with 9,000 merit points. Now, with the newly acquired 40,000 merit points, he had a total of 49,000 merit points. Let's check the latest updates on the Martial Path Evolutionary Path. Lin Yuan's thoughts flickered, and he summoned his evolutionary system panel. The extreme potential is still 6th rank. Lin Yuan stroked his chin. The 7th rank evolution path was much more difficult than he had imagined, and even the essence of many rules he had learned in the Divine Arms world could not give the Martial Path Evolutionary Path a sliver of possibility for advancing to the 7th rank. Perhaps, there are other constraints on the 7th rank evolution path? Lin Yuan pondered for a moment, then continued to look further. A full possibility of advancing to the 5th rank evolution system, and a 60% chance of advancing to the 6th rank evolution path. A smile appeared on Lin Yuan's face. If he remembered correctly, before he had uploaded the 3rd rank chapter, the chance of the Martial Path Evolutionary Path advancing to the 6th rank evolution path was only 10%. Now, surging to 60% was clearly due to the essence of the rules. Right. Now, where does the Martial Path Evolutionary System rank on the Kanglin Evolution ranking? Lin Yuan, somewhat curious, looked at the latest ranking of the Martial Path Evolutionary Path. Others would have to wait for the Kanglin Evolution ranking to be updated to know the ranking of any evolutionary path in real time. But Lin Yuan, as the founder of the Martial Path Evolutionary Path, naturally could check any real-time information about the Martial Path Evolutionary Path. Martial Path Evolutionary Path. Kanglin Evolution ranking. First, Virtual World. Personal Room. Lin Yuan sat cross-legged. The environment of the personal room simulated being a vast desert. The hot air spread like wildfire. Lin Yuan opened his eyes. Mr. Liao is looking for me? Lin Yuan's thoughts flickered. The barren desert in front of him began to transform. It quickly formed into a manor-like setting, with bridges over flowing water, resembling a southern Chinese household. The next moment, Mr. Liao's figure appeared in the chair across from him. Mr. Lin. Mr. Liao was quite respectful toward Lin Yuan. After all, on the arena, the prowess Lin Yuan had demonstrated had shattered Mr. Liao's perceptions time and again. Now, he had even advanced to the top 10 in the individual competition. It's worth noting that the Kanglan Star Arena competition was open to all evolvers of Kanglan Star. That Lin Yuan could break into the top 10 in such an arena. What kind of favored son of heaven was this? Even without thinking, Mr. Liao knew that once this competition ended, Lin Yuan would soar to heights far beyond his reach. There's just over a week until the final battle for the top 10. Mr. Liao disclosed his purpose for coming. Although from previous records, it was easy to see that Lin Yuan's odds against the other monsters in the top 10 weren't high. Many speculated that Lin Yuan might be the weakest among them. But at the very least, there was still concern. After all, Lin Yuan had secured a top 10 ticket, the pride of Dongning City for thousands of years. Mr. Lin, this is what I've collected, videos of those top 10 evolvers fighting, including analyses from higher-level evolvers. I believe after watching these, you'll understand more. Mr. Liao immediately played a video. The fight itself wasn't rare. What mattered was the attached analysis of other evolvers. Because like it or not, what different level evolvers see in the same battle often varies. High-level evolvers can spot the weaknesses and shortcomings of the combatants at a glance. If Lin Yuan could absorb the judgments in the analysis, he might have an advantage in the forthcoming top 10 showdown. While hoping for a top 5 or 3 might be too much, aiming for a 7th or 8th place was still hopeful. After all, to make it into the global top 10, the differences in strength between each were not substantial. Perhaps that bit of understanding could play a crucial role. Please watch Mr. Lin. Mr. Liao played the video. So powerful. Mr. Liao watched alongside Lin Yuan. Even after many views, Mr. Liao was still shocked. However, sitting beside him, watching the video with Mr. Liao, Lin Yuan seemed unconcerned. The pressure he felt before, from those evolvers standing in the global top 10. Now to Lin Yuan they seemed too weak. Chapter 93 Climbing to the Top. Trending rankings among the top 10 global evolvers. The one most likely to clinch the title should be the evolver known as Feng Qing. Feng Qing's origins are unknown. He is suspected to have encountered a great opportunity, receiving the heritage of a high-rank evolver and cultivating the ancient god evolutionary path. Moreover, the ancient god evolutionary path refers to a category of incredibly powerful evolutionary paths as a collective term. Each ancient god evolutionary path corresponds to an ancient god in the depths of the starry sky. In terms of hierarchy, the ancient god evolutionary path surpasses the 6th rank. Before Lin Yuan proceeded with his traversal, the one he most dreaded was this Feng Qing. With the power of the Taiji field at his disposal, if he were to go all out, Lin Yuan was confident he could compete with the other 8 evolvers. The only one he was uncertain about was Feng Qing. But that was before the traversal. After completing the 3rd traversal, Lin Yuan had transformed inside out. His strength had even reached the 4th rank, 9th segment. Under such circumstances, even though his martial path evolutionary path's potential limit was still not as high as the ancient god evolutionary path, the overwhelming difference at the Great Realm meant the two were simply not on the same level anymore. Now, Lin Yuan felt no interest in watching the battle videos of the other 9 evolvers. Not to mention feeling any pressure. Then I'll take my leave first, Mr. Liao said upon seeing Lin Yuan's lack of interest, promptly suggesting his departure. It seems Mr. Lin Yuan doesn't have much confidence in the upcoming competition for the top 10, Mr. Liao thought to himself as he returned to his personal room. Actually, it was only to be expected. One should see what the other 9 evolvers are like. The thunder god who can transform into lightning, the fortunate individual who awoke the 6th rank fallen star level bloodline, and Feng Qing, who cultivates the ancient god evolutionary path. This lineup would be considered extravagant even in previous tournament rankings. Kanglan Star Virtual World. Central Plaza area. Because of the popularity of the tournament, this area became rather desolate, as most citizens had gathered around the tournament arenas. At dawn that day, the Kanglan Evolution ranking began to update its list of information. At first, not many people paid attention to it. But soon, some noticed something amiss. Damn, am I seeing things? Why has the evolutionary path Purple Thunder, which was ranked first, moved to the 2nd position? I think I'm seeing things too. My god, the martial path evolutionary path has taken the top spot? In an instant, the Central Plaza area was in an uproar. Countless people were dumbfounded as they looked up at the word Martial Tao, now at the very top of the evolution ranking. Everyone was familiar with the Martial Path evolutionary path. In fact, they knew it very well. From its initial entry into the top 100 to the top 10, it took only a year or two. Everyone thought that the Martial Path evolutionary path would lay low for a while because every evolutionary path in the top 10 of the ranking withstood the test of hundreds of thousands of years. Especially the Purple Thunder evolutionary path, which dominated the top position for 500,000 years. One of the hot favorites for the current tournament champion, Thunder God, follows the Purple Thunder evolutionary path. Only now, the myth of the Purple Thunder evolutionary path had been broken. What is the background of the Martial Path evolutionary path? And which great figure developed this path? I guess this path must be from a higher-ranked planet's great figure, deliberately placed on our Kanglan star. I agree, the rise of the Martial Path evolutionary path was too sudden. I have an elder who works at the Central Continent Evolvers Association, and I've never seen an evolutionary path similar to the Martial Path evolutionary path. The crowd discussed animatedly, sharing their speculations. In the end, they concluded that the Martial Path evolutionary path most likely originated from a higher-ranked planet, introduced by great figures on Kanglan star. After all, the creation and refinement of an evolutionary path not only depend on its founder, but also require the participation of a large number of cultivators. Just like the Purple Thunder evolutionary path, in order to perfect this path, countless evolvers have contributed over hundreds of thousands of years. But what about the Martial Path evolutionary path? It came out of nowhere, without any sign of its emergence. Compared with the general onlookers, those who were previously displaced by a rank by the Martial Path evolutionary path were much more relaxed in their minds. When the Martial Path evolutionary path first appeared, it broke into the 93rd position on the evolving ranking. As a result, the original 93rd, 94th, 5th rank, etc., evolutionary paths naturally receded by one rank. Afterward, when the Martial Path evolutionary path rose to the 78th rank, the original 78th, 79th, 80th places also moved back by one rank. Latterly, when the Martial Path evolutionary path broke into the top 10, even more evolutionary paths moved back a rank. This had caused discontent among the cultivators following these evolutionary paths. But now, seeing the Martial Path evolutionary path ascend to the top, they didn't know why, but they felt somewhat happy. In short, it might be, if everyone moves back, it's as if no one has. Thunder Rain Star Region. Inside the virtual world. Lulan he sat cross-legged. In his mind emerged the teachings of Lin Yuan. The way of Taiji, based on Taiyin and Taiyang, seamlessly boundless. The more Lulan he thought about it, the more confused he became, only briefly comprehending when feeling the trace of the Taiji power left by Lin Yuan within him. It was at that moment a deep voice came through. Lulan he. Father. Lulan he was startled and quickly stood up, speaking respectfully. Compared to his gentle mother, Lulan he feared his father even more. His father was not only the sky of the Lulan family but also a figure of authority in the Thunder Rain Star domain. You're tuning in to the Wisdom Diary YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.